All right, what's up, everybody? So we got a special night for everybody tonight, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, you're not going to want to miss this. So if you're just jumping on, hopefully we're coming in loud and clear, and everything looks good. We have a special guest for tonight, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to introduce that guest actually here pretty soon. First, before I do, you guys know what to do. Get in the comments section. Let's see, we already got some people doing this tonight. We got Dambry in here. Casey's in here. You know, somebody on here that's watching live needs to give me a good thumbs up and let me know if it's all looking good, sounding good. Be part of the show, guys. Get in the comments section and join us. Join us tonight. It's going to be a good one. I usually previously ask questions for this show prior to the stream so that you guys can, I usually ask you to ask questions. You guys submit questions and I answer them live, but today we didn't do that because we're going to have plenty to talk about. Natalie's coming in saying handsome. I knew you'd say that, Natalie. We all knew you'd say that. So yeah, okay, there we go. We got the thumbs up. So it's all loud and clear, looking good, sounding good. And I actually apologize for my for my white shirt. I usually don't wear white shirts. I feel like they're a little too revealing, but you know what? It's what I got today. So guys, get in the comment section. Guys and girls, viewers, longtime listeners, no-time callers, get in the comment sections. We're going to get spicy tonight. We're going to get good. We're going to talk a lot. I'll tell you that right now. Okay, we even got Juan on here. He's saying, don't blame her. No homo, 100%. Yeah, there we go.
No, God!
Heidi's on here. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Heidi. That's fun to say together. Thanks for joining us. Amanda, Christy, Brody, Jade, Casey, all of you longtime listeners. Rochelle, what's up? Saying hello to the artistic family. Everybody, thanks for joining us. So get in the comment section. If you guys are watching this and you're not getting into the comment section, well, we're going to kick you off. You have to get in the comment section. If you're watching this and you're shy or you just don't want us to see your ugly mug through a comment, then just send a thumbs up. Give us a heart. Give us a like. Send a comment. But if you guys are watching this tonight and you like the episode and you're enjoying the content and you have questions and we don't get to your questions, feel free to re-ask them again, maybe when it's a little more appropriate. So what we're going to do is an interview with a very interesting person that I've been waiting for a long time to get on the show. I'm super excited to share his story and some of his experiences over the last couple of years as a business owner, as a father, and someone who served our country in multiple ways and is just trying to make it and leave some sort of legacy or something for his kids and his family they can be proud of. So hearing his story and talking to him about some of the experiences he's had over the last few years, specifically through the shutdowns, it's going to be very fun because I feel like it was very near and dear even to my heart because during that time it was quite, it was insane really in some ways. And then in some ways was just seemed like a big joke on us. So it'll be fun to share some of those ideas because me as a business owner, father, and, just in that same similar scenario, I got to watch Juan through the lens of social media, and I saw him anywhere from being on the news. I saw him locally. I saw some local posts about him. He is here in California, so we'll get into that in a little bit, and we'll talk to you guys about his experience and then let him share it straight from his mouth. So everybody that's on here, don't forget, get in the comment section. We'll block you if you don't. And that's pretty much it. I do want to say one thing before we get started. Well, I'll say a few things. One is cheers. Let's take a little drink of this. Casey, if you're watching, you can't be mad at me. I'm using your glass. What is this, Foresters? Here we go. Give you guys a little bit of information there. That's it for the night. I've got a stick ready too. We'll see if I get to that. See, the problem is when I light these bad boys up, the night gets pretty spicy. And I start talking and lose all concept of time, and it goes out multiple times, and relighting them is not always the best. So, okay, what else should I say to you guys other than I'm having a drink with you? In the comments, let us know where you guys are watching. Are you laying in bed? Are you at work? Are you probably shouldn't tell us if you're in bed, but are you playing hooky? Are you guys at school? Where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you watching from? And before we get to it, because I know I'll forget, Linda, if you're watching, if you're out there, you know you're my favorite. I got to say hi to Linda every single time I'm on here.
You are fake news.
Okay, so if you guys came to the pumpkin carving contest I had recently, then I want to say thank you, and I hope you guys had a great time. I know you did because I was there, and it was amazing. We have all the said carved pumpkins in the garage, And I will tell you right now, there are a few strays flying around because of the said pumpkins. So if you see any little fuzzy things in front of the camera, don't freak out. Nothing's wrong. It's just your unloved pumpkins that you guys didn't take home with you. But that's okay. I'll smash them and throw them away later. Okay, let's see. In the comments, is there anything I need to get to before we start this? We got somebody named Gigi Christie. That's a really cool, interesting handle. She's saying, hanging with Wendy in Phoenix. Amanda's saying she's making dinner, traveling. People are traveling, working, making avocado toast up yonder. That's awesome. Christy, thanks for sharing that. Okay, let's go here. You guys are really doing the comment thing tonight. My threats seem to work. Let's see here. Casey says, oh, you're the best, Josh. She likes when I use our class. So there we go. Thanks, Natalie, for saying kind things. And you guys always thank you for sending, of course, the American flags. Every time you guys send the American flags, you know I got a sound effect for you. So send them all night. But again, if you're watching, thumbs this thing up. Not only thumbs it up, but comment, like, share, do all the fun stuff, but especially get in the comment section. So we're going to bring on our guest here, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys. We're going to get into a deep conversation. Okay, usually we do a Q&A. This still is technically the Q&A, but I'm going to tell you right now, we're getting into a deep conversation, and you guys are going to have some questions. So bear with me. Let's have a good time. For you new listeners and you new watchers and you new stalkers, comment, get in the comment section, and let's have a good time. So I'm going to introduce my guest here. This is, without further ado, I've been waiting for a long time and excited, not waiting impatiently, but very patiently, to bring Juan on. So this is our guest for the night. Juan will get you centered in the screen, or if you want to be half man, that's totally cool too. It's very alluring and mysterious. But Juan, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right. So if you guys have any questions for Juan, like I said, if we don't answer them right away, re-ask them later. Give us a little bit of time. And if you want to say what's up, that's totally cool too. Juan, if you see people in here that you want to respond to, being a live session, then feel more than free to cut me off and join the people in the comment section. So, Juan, let's talk about your story, man. First, let's talk about, well, how we met. Do you remember the first time we haven't physically met in person yet, but you know I'm going to get you in the studio one day in person.
Yep, definitely. I'm actually, I have some family out in Fresno area.
Good.
My sister lives in Hanford, so I'd love to come out there.
Perfect. Yeah, getting you in the studio will be a lot of fun. It is always, of course, better and easier to have a deeper, more complex conversation in person, but this is great, and I appreciate your time for coming on here and doing this with me. So let's talk about what brings you on here. I think it was like maybe, I want to say it was like a year ago. It was a while ago, actually. I think I reached out to you. I'm glad you waited to come on because the studio is actually much better put together now. So when we get you in, it'll be much nicer.
It's pretty cool looking from here.
Amanda's on here saying, hello, Juan.
Hey, Amanda.
Brody Jade is
I
saying,
always like seeing Amanda's stuff online and stuff. She's pretty nice, conservative lady.
Nice. Okay, I want to thank you. Pumpkin carving was the best. Thanks, guys, for your comments. So, Juan, let's talk about the situation you're in. Get straight to it. That really led me to you. So, years ago, everybody on here is well aware that we had a bit of a situation in our country, and I'll just start right away with like your background and kind of then how you handled the situation with your business, because that's what really drew my interest in, like, I guess you could say the way you handled it was very similar to the way I would hope I would have handled it. I don't know that because I wasn't tried and tested in the same way you were with the way that, you were, I want to say harassed. Do you think that's the right word to use?
I think it was like I was dared to, and then, just a lot of disbelief thinking that I wouldn't. And then, I think there was a lot of shock that I did.
Okay. So people were probably trying to push your buttons, and was it almost like bullying in a way?
I don't know. I don't know if anyone could bully me, if that's quite the right word, but definitely a lot of pressure from the cities, a lot of pressure from the fire department, the police department, my friends that were involved in politics. I feel like everyone had a good feeling about me prior to that. Like I wasn't like a bad name in town or anything, but I also feel like they thought that, oh, hey, we're going to get this guy to come along. And if this guy comes along, then everyone's going to come along because this guy's like, he's a big name out here. He's not, he's going to follow the rules. He was a cop. He was a Marine. So, let's just shut him down and we'll set the precedence.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Everybody's saying I have a bit of an echo. Let's make sure we fix this, guys. I'm going to try my best to do this. So I think they're saying there's an echo on your end. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Juan.
I turned down my.
Yeah, make sure there's no other mics picking up. Let's see here. The microphone that you're using. Let's see here.
It's Bluetooth. I can take that off and just use the computer one.
Okay, it might be better. We'll see. You guys let me know right now if the echo's any better. I'm just going to turn some of these volumes, adjust them a little bit, and so you guys can let me know. Okay, so it went away. I think what it is the feedback from these actual headphones going into my mic.
Okay.
So I'm changing that, and I think it's better now. So I think we're actually good.
Well, let me know if I need to do anything on my end.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't like the audio and you hear anything we could change, just give me a thumbs down, and I'll know what you're talking about because nobody ever thumbs down my show, so we'll know. So yeah, Wendy's saying it went away. And Natalie is also, by the way, saying thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you, Natalie.
All right, so let's get back into that. You felt like you were being tried and tested, and so we're definitely going to dive deep into that. And let's start first with kind of who you are, where you live, what's your background. I mean, I've seen a lot of the stuff online, a lot of stuff on social media about you. So let's fill in the people with like who is Juan and what is a little bit of your background that you could share with us.
Okay, I'll make it really brief. I was adopted by a family in Southern California, Thousand Oaks area, actually, when I was little. Stayed with them until I was about 10. We didn't get along very well. They didn't do anything crazy, but we just didn't get along. So I became a ward of the state. I was sent up to Vacaville when I was 10 years old and lived in a group home until I ran away at 16. I joined the Marine Corps, served in the infantry for about 4 years, 8 months. I got out and I became a correctional deputy in Solano County for about a year and a half, and then I went to the Highway Patrol for another 10 years. Since then, I've been injured, and so I retired and became a barber about 7 years ago. And probably maybe like 4 or 5 months before I became a legal barber in California, I bought a shop in Winters, California, actually where I'm sitting right now. And this was my first barbershop. Now, currently, it's a tattoo shop with my office in the back. And then I own 4 other shops. I have Vacaville, Dixon, Fairfield, Wairika, and Winters. So 5 total, 4 barbershops. One's a tattoo shop. I'm not a tattoo artist. I am a barber.
Mm-hmm.
However, since I stood my ground and I'm the only one of 4 barbers in the whole entire state of California that's been my license has been revoked.
Okay.
So I'm not currently a legal barber. However, I don't give a shit and I cut hair.
Okay. So why, can you explain that? Like, why don't you give a shit? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, why do you say that?
Well, first of all, the whole pandemic was a farce. I saw it from day one. I mean, I know everyone was scared and upset and worried probably around March to early April. And I kind of was looking around at everyone and I'm like, man, like, these are some scary Americans. You know what I mean? Like, these are Americans that are so afraid of what's going on that they're willing to give up their freedoms. And the problem with the way people thought was that I would comply is that they thought because I was a Marine and because I was a highway patrolman and because I was a sheriff deputy and I was a good dude for the most part, right? They thought that I would comply, but in fact it's the opposite. The Marine Corps taught me to be a leader. The Marine Corps taught me to think on my own. Of course I followed orders and I did all that stuff, but being a Marine gave me a lot of confidence. And then the Highway Patrol, the same thing. They taught us not to get bullied and what the laws were and what they weren't. And there was absolutely no law, no legislation, no precedents for what they were doing. And it was super unconstitutional. And then the other thing was I started thinking about all the guys that worked for me. At the time, there's probably about 18 to 20 guys that were working for me. And they're all young dads, young moms. They all, work real hard and they were good at their craft. But, if they just stopped working that day, we don't pay into unemployment, we don't pay into Social Security, we don't pay into state disability, we don't pay into anything. So the day that barbers and beauticians and cosmos and anyone in the beauty industry stops working, that's the day we get no money. And there was no PPO or PPA or whatever the heck they're saying that there was. There was nothing for us. We didn't get unemployment, and I think there's a reason for definitely a huge reason why our industry was targeted. We can get into that as well, but we were an easy target, and so I just felt like, hey, no way are we taking the blame. No, we're the most sanitary industry in California,
Right.
besides maybe doctors and nurses,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we have to do 1,500 hours of sanitary service, and I know most people won't believe this, but the 1,500 hours of barbering school has nothing to do with cutting hair and everything to do with sanitation.
Right.
So you could do 1,500 hours of barber school and suck, but you'll know how to sanitize your area.
Right. More than people at restaurants or liquor stores or the places that were open.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Costco, Walmart, whatever.
Right. Like it's interesting you say that because you're also mentioning you have a tattoo shop and the people that work in there fall into the same category of getting none of the assistance, none of the, the loans or the whatever they were calling them. I don't know the assistance that was given out. What's interesting about that is how easily people were so quick to want to basically say, hey, here's a little bit of money they're going to give you. So why not just go home and be safe and not hurt anybody? That seems insane. That seemed insane to me. It still does. And I think at the time, because people were so scared, it didn't seem so insane. It seemed like it was the right thing to do for a lot of people. What was your first responses to that?
Well, initially, like when we stayed open and everyone got wind of it, they were asking, "Are you really staying open? Do you not care about my grandma? Do you not care about my friend's grandma or my little kids? You're going to kill people. I hope you die." We heard it all, right?
Right.
And we're like, "Listen, no one's telling your grandma to come to my shop and get a haircut.
Right.
I mean, we're providing a service for people that voluntarily want the service. Which we were the we've never ever been so busy in our whole entire lives. I mean, the whole industry shut down, and because we didn't, I mean, even if 1% of Californians needed a haircut and they came to us, we were slammed.
Wow.
We were making and we didn't kidnap any of those people. We didn't drag them into our shop. We didn't coerce them. We didn't do anything. We just all we said was, "Hey, we're going to work. We're going to provide for our families. If you don't like it, don't come."
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And to be honest with you, it was a great filter, right? Like we live in California. Solano County is somewhat of a conservative area, but there's a lot of ultra left leaning people. And what it did is it told everyone in the area, "Hey, where I stand," right? And if they don't like it, it was a great, perfect filter. Now you don't have to come to my shop ever again, and all the real ones will come to my shop. So it was great. It was great for business. It was great, for the people that they wanted to cast stones and point. Go ahead. It didn't hurt me at all.
Interesting.
Like
That's
again, none of these
interesting
people
take.
were providing for my family. None of them were offering to pay me, $10,000 to $12,000 a month to shut down my shops. Not to mention, um, I only been a barber for the last 7 years, right? So at that time, 3 years ago, I'd only been a barber for 4 years, and I'd invested a substantial amount of money into opening these shops, and no one was going to tell me that I couldn't feed my kids or I couldn't keep the investments that I just made open, right?
Yeah.
Also, I didn't make any of my barbers work. No one that was working in my shops. I probably had 18 guys. I probably only had 6 or 7 guys actually working, right? And I didn't charge rent to the guys that didn't, and they didn't lose their spots either. When they were comfortable to come back to work, they came back to work. I don't blame anyone for how they felt. However, I do blame people for trying to make me feel how they felt. Like that just didn't work out for me.
That makes sense. So let me ask you this then, because I got a lot of this too, and this is, like I said, this is one of those things that kind of I felt like paralleled my situation working in a tattoo shop and owning a place here in Clovis, California. Clovis is a very conservative place, but it wasn't. I didn't feel like it was like untouchable. I mean, it was still very much like it was all up in the air, especially during the beginning. Like we were thinking people were going to barge in our doors and secretly People were turning people in for sure locally.
Oh my! And you know the worst people were the other barbers, the other salon ladies. I mean, you wouldn't believe how they turned on each other, and
Crazy.
what it really was, Josh, is it was they were cowards and they were unwilling to make a stand, so they wanted to bring me down, so they didn't feel because they knew they were cowards. They
Right.
knew they weren't going to take a stand. They knew that they were going to sell people under the bus, and so rather than see me take their clientele and see me um, hold my ground. I mean, I guarantee you, if the so-called, you know, undisclosed people who told on me to this department, the state and the city of Vacaville, I
Mhm.
guarantee you, the top ones are barbers and salon ladies,
Right.
guaranteed.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because no one. See, I'll go back into one thing I was going to say, Josh, is that tattooing in the beauty industry, we're our own worst enemies, right? Because this
Yeah.
is such a great industry to be an individual. We don't have any bosses. We don't have any employees. We all run it the way we want to run it. And if we don't like it, we go start our own thing. And if we don't like it, we go to another shop. If we don't like it, no one's going to tell me what to do, right? And that sounds great, and it's somewhat true. We make our own hours. We get paid very well for what we do. It's a great craft, and that's only been in the last 10 to 15 years that we've been getting paid what we deserve. But the problem with that is we don't have any political action committees. We don't have any unions. We could have been the most powerful political group in the state of California. If every tattoo artist and every barber and every salon girl and every massage therapist and every nail technician paid $5 a month into a political action committee where we had lobbyists and lawyers and all that, we would we would be the most strongest political action committee in the nation. Really, I'm
Interesting.
being honest about that. But we won't. We can't because everyone's like, oh, if we unionize, they're going to tell us how to run our shops. No one said anything about a union. I'm talking about a political action committee. But me going into the next shop, when I go to Joe Schmo's barbershop across town, they automatically think, oh, I'm here to spy. If I go into this guy's tattoo shop, it's like, oh, what's Primo doing in here? Like, is he trying to take my artists? Like all these issues that are within our industry, which are sad because again, we're our own worst enemies. If we would just come together and be allies and be happy for each other for thriving and pay into a something that could help every single one of us out, man, I'm telling you, this would be. I mean, we're the oldest industries in the world. Tattooing and haircutting. I mean, next to prostitution, I don't think there's
Ancient.
anything older than that.
Right.
It's ancient. So we should be proud and we should be bold and we should be the leaders of our communities. We should be the mayors. We should be the presidents. It should be us. I mean, we have our ear to the ground to everyone. All your clients, I bet you some of them are plumbers, doctors, lawyers, DAs,
Sure.
criminals. We do it all, right? So we have our ear to the ground to the people and we could be great. And salon girls could be great and nail technicians could be great. But we slice ourselves in the back and tell each other and here we are.
Let me
And
ask you
like,
this.
yeah, go ahead.
So, with that being said, where do you think that is now? I mean, it's over, right? Quote unquote over.
I mean, I don't think so. I think we're a millisecond away from it happening again, and it could be the guise of another COVID outbreak. It could be the guise of a COVID flu combination, or I would even go and say that climate change is going to be the next thing.
Mm,
Like we're like, oh, you're only allowed to drive so many miles, and you're only going to do this, and oh, our world's going to end tomorrow if we don't climate change. And I mean, literally, I feel like the original shutdowns. What do we have? Two shutdowns, maybe two, and then some probationary periods a couple
right.
times. So those were just test runs, and
Right.
those were to see if Americans would comply. And overwhelmingly, they did a great job. I mean, all they did is throw a little fear at everyone and say that there were rules, which there weren't, right? Because I mean, you listen to Governor Newsom today, right? Oh, I didn't. If I could do it all over again, I would have changed everything. Like, oh, I didn't make anyone shut down. I did not shut down any businesses. Rob Botna, same thing, the Attorney General. I didn't shut down businesses. I just enforced the governor's emergency powers, right? Well, what legislative power did you enforce? Oh, none, because there is none. And since then, have they formed it? Have they passed any legislation on shutdowns? They have
Right.
not.
Right.
So they don't want to try to make legislation because it won't pass, right? They want to rule in fear, and Americans have already, passed their test, if you will, or failed my test, right? But passed theirs, and so they could do it again at the drop of a dime. And everyone who sits here and says, "Oh, never, it won't happen," like I won't do that again. Yes, they will. They will. Like I was hoping when I opened back up that every single barber that saw me and every single salon girl that saw me would be motivated and would be like, "Dang, dude, they're not taking that guy to jail." He's
Right.
just holding his ground. He's not saying "f you." He's just saying, "I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do because I have a family to feed." I mean, that's really what I said. I didn't say, "Hey, you're all un-American fucks." I wanted to say that, but I didn't. I just said,
Right.
"Hey, I have a family to feed." And
Interesting.
if and you know and still people didn't. No one else opened up. No one
Right.
else. I mean, people were taking people through the back door for sure. You know what I mean? And listen, I'm not harping on those guys. I don't blame them. They had to work.
Right.
But there's something about it used to be an American theme that we were rebellious and we didn't put up with anything, right?
Right.
I mean, that's why
Yeah.
we had the Revolutionary War, and we've always been anti. Even it's crazy because the left used to be anti-government all the time, and now they
Now they're
say, "Hey,
pro.
if Daddy tells us to do it, let's do it." It's
Yeah,
weird.
that's very strange. That's been really strange. Guys our age growing up, it was so different. It was like anti-establishment, and now it's like force the establishment, and it's so twisted.
Yeah,
There's so many
it's
nuances to that.
twisted.
Very strange. And what you're saying to your point of, in regards to everybody else's reaction to it, because I definitely give people a pass at least for the first couple of weeks, maybe the first month of it. It was terrifying. People were being told lies and they're being spoken like gospel. So, and even me, I'm paying attention. That's all I was doing is paying attention because I got kids, we got families, we got businesses, and I'm trying to figure
Right.
out what's the best position. And I remember thinking after a couple of weeks of this, seeing kind of through the lies, and then what happened was after a month, I'm like, okay, so if this lasts any longer, because I had just opened my business like 7 months prior, and I took out a retirement fund. I took out a bunch of money that I'd been saving for so long. I
Me
invested a
too.
ton just in that like first year,
Hmm.
and I remember thinking, okay, if this continues, which most likely it's going to, it's pretty obvious. They said a couple of days, then they said weeks, then they said a month, and I'm like, oh, this is going to turn into years. And if I don't get to work, I lose it all. There's no bailout for me. Nobody's going to forgive me. There's no other answer besides getting to work. So I remember going back. I was instantly like, I'm going to keep my appointments. If people want to keep them, they can. If they don't, I'm not. I'm honoring their deposits. I'm not going to hold people to it. I totally understand their position, but I remember as I went back to work, one of my artists said she actually came in and saw me. She saw my car at the shop, and she's like, "You're back? What the heck? Why didn't you tell me? I need to work." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't. I'm still not really sure how this is all panning out, and I have to keep this place open for you to have somewhere to work." And she was excited to come back like that. She wasn't afraid at all. But
Yeah.
seeing for the next 2 years, my front windows face our main street, and it was like having a preview to what America has turned into with how much we allowed this place to turn into a fucking ghost town.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was the most
I mean,
devastating part.
yeah, we shot ourselves in the foot on every parameter. I don't think there's a single person that can say that it helped in some way. It didn't help us financially, economically. We went to shit. Our kids went to shit. Started committing suicide. Started falling behind. I mean, we're already bad enough as it is. But California's the worst state. We stayed education wise. We stayed shut down the longest. Like everything that could have gone wrong, this state did wrong,
Yeah.
and it shows, and we're still hurting from it. And then what's one of the worst parts is everyone 18 years old, 18 to 25 years old, they loved it. They
Yeah.
loved the shutdown. They love that free money. They sit at their home with their mom's free Wi-Fi, and they're loving it. They're going out. They're doing whatever they want to do, and they're doing it on our dime. You
Hmm.
know, and we just created a window into socialism. Like, hey, don't do anything. Just be scared and Daddy government will take care of you.
Yeah.
And these guys were already struggling enough. Like, what 18 to 25-year-old has a good work ethic anymore? And it's not their fault; it's their parents' fault. And like everyone wants to put it on these teachers and everything. No, it starts at home, and
Sure.
it's just, and that's in every aspect of life. Our military's gone softer and weaker. Our police force have gotten softer and weaker, and our education's gone softer and weaker. Everything's been softer and weaker, and everyone wants to coddle these kids, and they love that free Wi-Fi at Mama's house, and then we got to give them
recipe for
we got to give them
disaster.
excuses. Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster, and then we're going to hand them checks, and then we're going to wonder why it took them 2.5 years to get another job again.
So what's interesting, Juan, and actually someone's asking a good question. It'll lead us into some more of your story here in a second. But what's interesting about it too is, I think what's going on is, a lot of people have conversations regarding these sort of scenarios that we're all obviously very well aware of and involved in, and they have conversations about it regarding these specific scenarios. Like, why are they shutting down businesses? Don't they know they're the backbone of this country? Why are they shutting down hair salons? We're some of the most cleanest people. Why are they're trying to make rational sense of the actions that are taken, and the obvious point is you can't, because they're not doing these things to make sense. They're doing these things to make sense for themselves.
There's 38 boards in California, and I mean like doctor boards, dentist boards, lawyer boards, blah blah blah, boards that oversee consumer affairs, right? And one of those boards is the department or the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, right? Which I fall under, nail people and cosmetologists fall under. The Board of Barbering and Cosmetology, for whatever reason, is the only board in the whole state of California that revoked anyone's license, right?
Right.
And they revoked 4 people licensed in the whole state of California, right? Me being one of them. There's a girl named Kira down south that worked at that owns a salon, and then there's 2 guys, Charlie and another guy, that own Uppercuts barbershops up here in Northern California.
Okay.
And the only reason they shut us down and not anyone else is because we said something, right? Of course, there's 600,000 barbers and Cosmos and nail techs. If you combine all of us in California, there's 600,000 of us, right? And of course, there was more than just 4 of us working and operating, right? It's just that we said stuff. We went on the news and we're like, no, this is not American. This is not right, right? And so only one board decided to utilize their power to revoke our licenses, and that's the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. So in the whole entire state, only 4 professional licenses were revoked, and that was barbers and a cosmetologist.
Interesting.
And it's because that board is super ultra liberal, they wanted to kiss Newsom's ass so bad that they want to say see, we're gonna stand up for this, right? None of the lawyers, none of the doctors, none of the dentists that were working, none of the auto workers, none of anyone. And you know why? Because lawyers have freaking political action committees,
Right.
and car automakers have, and teachers have political groups, and all these people that went to work, on the sly, that didn't get their licenses revoked. It's because they didn't stand up and say anything. Well, so now you have a state that's punishing 4 Americans that stood up and expressed their First Amendment rights, which is the freedom of speech. I can say, hey, this government and this state and this thing is wrong. I can say that. That's my right as an American, right? It's our First Amendment, but I got punished for it, and I got my licenses stripped for it.
That's interesting. So they're
I had
making
police,
an example.
right? And I had police come and harass me inside my shop, and I was served, cease and desist orders from the city of Vacaville. I'm the most pro law enforcement and military friendly shop in all the area. I was a cop and I was a Marine. And everyone knows that. Everyone in our town knows it. And when the police, people were coming in, I'm like, hey guys, who do you think all your guys are getting their haircuts from right now?
Right.
You think who else are they going to? Come on, you guys know, I know the rules. You can't come in here and punk me. I know that there's no law. And in fact, if you're not here to arrest me or serve me a subpoena or do anything like that, ticket me or take me to jail, then just get the fuck out of my shop, right?
Right.
So now I'm being disrespectful to these dudes that used to be my brothers, right? Because they took their oath to the Constitution and instead traded into the city manager or their paycheck. And listen, I'm not going to blame them. They probably make great money. They have families to support too. But they didn't swear an oath to Governor Newsom. They didn't swear an oath to the city mayor. They
Right.
swore an oath to the Constitution. And life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are part of the Constitution. And
So how does
California
that
actually has a constitution that goes even a little farther that says life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and the pursuit of income,
right? So let me ask you
pursuit of
this:
assets.
with your experience being law enforcement, now you're a business owner, and so you have this really unique perspective, really, not just serving our country, but then serving our country, stateside, and then also being a business owner, which, in my opinion, is just as much serving our country as anybody else, because that's what our country is made up of, is these
Right.
types of people, and they're just as crucial. Because what's the point of fighting for our country and protecting our country and serving our country if there's no country to protect, serve, or fight for?
And
And
that's
it's
what
made up of
and that's
people like you.
that made me exactly even more mad. I'm like, hey, listen, I served my country, I served my state, I served my county, and now I'm servicing our community, like in a good way. I sponsor teams, I sponsor veterans organizations, I sponsor police officer organizations, fire, you name it. I want primos to be everywhere, on everyone's shirt, on everyone's little league hat. I want it everywhere, right? And I spent a lot of money investing in the, like I don't even make a profit on my shops. I make a profit on my chair, but not my shops, right? Because I want to give back. But it's like they instantly forgot it. They instantly forgot that I was a part of the community. And then all the service that I've done, and I definitely don't mean to say I do more than anyone else. It's just that only 1% of Americans volunteer to serve in our military, right? And the thin blue line's a thin line for real. You know what I mean? Only so many people do it, right? So who are you to tell me that I can't provide for my family after I've served my state and my community and my country so long? Like that just didn't make any sense to me.
That's what I was wondering with you and your situation too, really, was like, how does that, in a real personal way, how does that feel when you're sitting at home at the end of the day, you're trying to figure this out? You're watching the news, you see stuff that's being posted and shared about you. You see the stuff that you've, shared also out there. Cause I know you've been on a few of the big news platforms and shared your story there best you could. And I'm sure not all of them were as friendly to you as they could have been, which you would expect. But how does that feel at the end of the day in your position, knowing you've served your country, knowing that you've been in law enforcement, in the position of these people that are now trying to enforce it? What does that feel like on a personal level, just out of sheer curiosity? How could you share that with us and tell us that in a specific
I
way?
used to daydream about my kids joining the Marine Corps and becoming, public servants, if you will, firemen, cops, and I don't want that for them at all. And
Wow,
that's sad. Like it could have been a legacy. Now it's I would beg my children not to do that. Like
interesting.
because it doesn't make me proud anymore. It doesn't make me feel like 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 I know it must be hard to understand that I literally would have taken a bullet for my country, and I literally put myself in a position to take bullets for my country, and I literally fought the meanest people in the area in Oakland and Richmond. You know what I mean? And I chased and I stopped bleeding. I held dead babies in my arms. I've done all of that, all for so they could just it's just sad. If they had a
Amazing.
50-gallon drum of water and you put your finger in that 50-gallon drum for 30 years, right? And then you take your finger out of that 50-gallon drum after 30 years, that's the difference you make as a cop or a policeman, in our communities. It's sad. And it used to not be like that, but like the laws are getting more and more liberal. There's no consequences for anyone. And you know, I was seeing this even before the shutdowns happened, and then when the shutdowns happened and no one had my back, it was definitely a blow. It hurt me because I never thought I wouldn't love this country.
Hmm.
I never thought that. I never thought that I would defy police officers for any reasons. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, I never there. I just didn't think there would ever be a reason to. But it seems like more and more, and when you see these cops on TV in all nations, every single country, you saw cops beating people up that were coming outside of their houses, and like
Right.
women and children. It was nuts. It's like, how could this guy just knock that poor lady out for being outside of her house? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we saw it over and over, like, and it's just nuts. Like, and then you see at the same time them allowing BLM riders. All of a sudden, the COVID went away
Totally
for a couple
excused.
weeks. Totally excused. Hey, burn down that small business actually while you're at it, because you know why? Because you deserve it. Because you feel like you're a victim, right?
Right.
And you're not relevant unless you're a victim. So go ahead and burn that out, and you know what? Steal those shoes while you're at it. You probably need them. You know what I mean?
As long as it's for
And
the causes that they want you to support.
right, right. And so BLM was a farce. All that stuff was a farce. You have these same politicians who are telling us to lock down at home, at these parties, at these restaurants, at these hair salons,
Right.
freaking out protesting with BLM, and you basically see like somehow a group of elite people on the left have gotten control of this, and everyone's afraid of them. There's no
Right.
Republicans are standing up for us anymore. They're terrified of. I got to give the left some credit, man. They're down.
Yeah.
They're down,
You're not wrong. They
and,
are
and we're not.
definitely a community. No
Yeah,
doubt.
and
They're
we're
very
not. We're too afraid to even tell them like, hey, don't steal my stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah, don't even
It's
take my
crazy.
social media platforms.
Because you know why? Because you and I are worried about our sister who put a black square on their freaking IG account is not going to talk to us on Thanksgiving. So
Right.
don't offend Judy because like she believes in this. Oh, and she has a right, and all this stuff, and then you're a couple years later, and then on top of it, we have like all these other issues, like it's just a lot of other issues going on, and you're just like, dude, we're saying men are women and women are men
Yeah.
and
It's
boys are girls, and so how are we supposed to take anything seriously now if we can't even be factual
that's a
and
good point.
any you know
Yeah, that's a really good point because, well, Natalie's on here, and Natalie, I love you. She's awesome. She's saying, in regards to kind of how they're reacting and what they're doing, she says this is why they keep trying to take our Second Amendment, and it goes to show too. People can think this
Absolutely.
is conspiratorial all they want. It just means that they're simply not watching, paying attention, or reading, or listening. They're not looking at what it's actually like because,
Listen, yeah, because we're not the far right anymore. We're right by far.
mm,
And that's this conspiracy theories are they only take about a week to unfold and to become fact, right?
yeah,
We're like 100% right all the time. We're like, so maybe we're not the conspiracy theorists.
sure, that's
We
absolutely
can't keep
correct.
on being.
Yeah, I
It
have.
just it's
I thought
crazy.
about it in regards to, let's say, just policies that are getting shoved around and ideologies, whether it's far left or politics or conservative or liberal, whatever that is, with the exemption of the fact that I think on both sides they're all completely failing. The whole thing is failing completely. There's
It's true.
nobody
You're right.
representing, or I shouldn't even say representing. There's people representing, but there's definitely nobody taking actions in an American fashion in any way or form. But what's interesting is that just to look at it from outside in, there are so many radical things, like you just pointed out a few, so many radical things that are getting shoved down our throats and deployed across all platforms for everybody to consume. And really, it's like if you don't consume it, if you don't listen to it, and you don't agree, then you're punished or you're at least you're bashed. And they've done really good to manipulate everybody
Well,
into
they really
accepting
have.
it.
And you have Brody Jade on here, and she's like, it's definitely created a big divide, right? And it's created such a divide that, like, let's say you and I are both Democrats, but if you're not Democrat like me, then you're my enemy, and
Hmm.
you're just as bad as those Republicans, right?
Right.
And like, there's no more moderation, there's no more bipartisanship. It's people forget that we're all. I thought we were all Americans. You know what I mean? And the flag that we're all under is red, white, and blue, right? And people forget that. Like, and honestly, the only correction I can really see is if we have some sort of national service for everyone. That's the only way we're going to get back to loving this country again, right? Everyone do 2 years. I don't care if you do 2 years in the Chair Force, in the Navy, in the Army, in the Marine Corps, in the Peace Corps, and the Boys and Girls Club,
National Guard.
whatever, right? National Guard, anything, right? we just all need to serve our countries, right? So that at the very minimum, we're on the same platform. We're all veterans. We all served, right? And so we all can respect that each other have. We all have a say, right? Israel does it. They're all have. Everyone has to serve, right? 2 years, like unless
Yeah.
you're mentally handicapped or something like that, then yeah, obviously you can't make those guys do it. But other than that, I mean, and if you can't pass the physical test, okay, fine. You're now a part of our security ops
Sure.
or
There's a branch for you.
our spy shield or whatever, right? Just
Someone needs
serve,
to make
so you can all,
sandbags.
yeah. And so you can say that you did your part, right? And then everyone respected everyone's opinions because like we've all been there, we've all done
Right.
that,
It's
and
interesting you say
it's
that
hard for.
because I think that the one of the biggest problems we have, which also points out to the biggest solution we could probably undertake, which would be the indoctrination systems that like Amanda's even on here pointing out that she has to fight for her kids not to get the jabs. That
Yeah.
for us to stand up to my premise is I'll paint this really broadly. I think the systems in place are already so corrupt. There's no reforming them. What do you think about
Yeah, we
that?
got to start over. I mean, we got to get rid of the ATF, the FBI, the DEA, any
IRS,
any
please.
any three-lettered, yeah, IRS for
See, now you're
sure.
getting everybody
Right?
excited. Now we're talking
Yeah,
about
we need to get
America.
rid of we need to get rid of all that, right, and start over. There's got to be some different sort of bureaucracy. You know what I mean? And less is more. If you're trying to impede on my right to what kind of car I'm allowed to drive, what kind of electric I'm allowed to use. I mean, you guys are doing the most. Like I can't get a leaf blower that has an engine on it anymore in California.
Right.
And I don't know if anyone's ever looked at a lithium mine and an oil field. There's quite a difference.
Yeah, not pretty.
Lithium's it's not pretty. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. There's definitely some divides in this country, and who knows what it's going to take. Like I used to say, like, hey, it's going to get so bad in the city, like San Francisco, that once the pendulum swings all the way to the left, it's going to have to come back down to the right again, right? But I don't know if I'm right?
Mm.
Because my 44 years on this earth, it's gone to the left and the left, and every time I think that there's no more left, there's something
So
else,
far.
man.
Insane left.
Like we're not Latinos anymore. We're Latinx, right? We're not men. We're whatever we want to be
Right.
tomorrow. Oh, you know what? If you're homeless and you're transgender, we'll give you an extra $900 here in the city, right? Oh, you want to shit on the streets? Cool, but don't drink out of a straw.
And
Like
don't have
because
Skittles.
that's bad.
No
Don't have
Skittles.
Skittles, like no Skittles. But you know what? You need a fifth jab, and oh, you know what? And flu season and COVID season coexist, so let's get a double jab. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing that the thing that they said that like about going woke, I kind of believe it. Like I believe that there's been a great awakening, and the people that are not. I'm not talking about the left woke. I'm talking about on the right. Like we actually woke up. Like I haven't. I have a new baby girl. She's 2 years old. I love her, but I'll never
Congratulations.
give her. I'll never give her another. I gave all my other kids their shots. You know what I mean? But I won't give my baby girl any
Yeah.
shots. And it took all this for me to be like, damn, like even if my girl gets polio, there's only a 8.9% chance that nothing at all is going to happen. So why are we filling our kids with all these mercuries and aluminums and all these things, right? But I never thought like that before. It wasn't even
Right.
registered. So someone
Yeah.
got woke, and I think it's the good people of America that are waking up and realizing like, hey, maybe our government could be behind some really bogus bullshit. You know what I mean? Maybe
Yeah.
these wars that lasted 20 plus years weren't worth it.
I think
Maybe
that's
we got to
also
stop trying to get Iraqis to not be, to accept homosexuals, and
yeah.
just how about we just pay attention to our own country and secure our borders and feed our veterans and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, now you're speaking rationally, and one of the problems is with speaking rational is it draws this weird psychological divide between what's actually happening and being purported, and then what are most Americans like. The conversation we're having right now, and everybody watching for the most part is totally on board. Like every time you talk about these things, and I live in California, and I still every day run into people, and these conversations right here happen all the time. I mean, don't get me
They
wrong.
do.
I'm very much aware that the other conversations start too. But this kind of conversation has been something that is not just, let's say, more tangible than ever before. You can see these things in real life now. It's no longer kind of behind the scenes, like tiptoeing.
You're exactly right. I mean, look at Hamas with their little hang gliders and scooters and their little Toyota pickup trucks, able to infiltrate one of the most mightiest countries in the world, right? And obliterate 1,000 people in one day, right? Men, women, children, disgusting things that they've done, right? And you know what Israel allows some of their citizens to have is some of them are allowed to have a gun with
Some.
50 rounds, and that's it, a pistol, right? They're allowed, if you want to get a weapon and you get a permit and you do everything right and you suck the right whatever, then you can have a pistol with 50 rounds. And good luck if it's 1 in 100 households, right? And look what happened to them. And so now, and it used to be super rational to say that, like, oh, what do we need these big guns for? Why do we need AR-15s? Why do we need 30-round magazines, right? Well, now, just like you said, now it's it's part of the history now. That's why we
Right.
need it, right? It's documented. It's needed because 1,000 people were killed by some hang glider, freaking flip flop wearing dudes, and because their country wouldn't let them be armed,
Right.
right?
No.
And
And we
and they,
found
and they
ourselves in
wanted
that scenarios too often recently. We're all aware. I mean, everybody's paying attention to some extent that we're seeing these things happen locally as well. And I hear
oh
this would
yeah.
be a nice little segue into a sort of deeper part of this conversation, maybe kind of where I was hoping this would go. Everybody's aware of the shutdowns and the things that have been going on, and we kind of touched on what you went through in your business and how I'm trying to relate to it and how I watched it and understood it from my point of view. And the world got to watch a lot of these people go through these things. But now we're starting to see something totally different. In my opinion, what we're actually seeing is the aftermath of their whole plan. And everybody keeps still speaking, saying one day they're going to, or it seems like they're trying to. They always use these words as if it's somewhere in this far future that our country is going to get taken over by people who are coming across the border that are, Chinese communists, that are, terrorists, that are drug smugglers, that are part of the,
Oh yeah.
bigger plan of things. Well, people are there. They say still to this day, what they're trying to do is shut us down. They've already done it all. So people say, "Oh, I heard a guy tell me today. I'm surprised something like, September 11th hasn't happened again since." And I'm like, "Have you not? What do you mean since? Because it's not the same
Yeah.
thing. It's still it's happening right as we speak, especially in our country, whether it's at the border, our money getting shipped overseas, and something I heard that was really shocking because it just made so much sense to me, and how we got all these distractions to keep us from seeing this big picture, even though it's right in our faces. And then we're asking, I'm surprised this isn't getting worse. It's pretty fucking bad. And here's what somebody said that I really hit home. He said, Americans, because you got to be careful saying America because it can imply the government too, but Americans are the most financially, economically enslaved people in all of history. More resources are getting extracted out of 5% of the world's population, which is America. More resources are getting extracted out of us. It used to be land of the free, now it's land of the worker bee. We are literally just working away, slaving away, getting robbed and robbed and robbed, which was their whole fucking agenda, and sending this shit off to everybody else while we're thinking everything's great, but we're not paying attention. We're on the brink right now. Like you said, we're right there. We're right there for something maybe even far worse.
Americans are slaves. We're slaves to, you know, stuff, stuff that doesn't even matter, and then also, if you think about it, 9/11, what, under 4,000 people died in one day. So now you have an opiate epidemic, 20 something years later, 100,000 people are dying a year.
Right?
100,000, and that's from cartels bringing stuff over to our country, and our kids are dying. 100,000. So yeah, it's all relevant, right? But 9/11 was a bad day, but we're having a bad year every year. 116,000 has died so far this year. It's not even the end of the year,
Right.
right? So that's an absorbently bigger amount of people that are dead compared to
Correct.
9/11.
Yeah, it's
But are we
happening still.
fighting the cartels? Are we hunting down these cartel guys? Are we
Right.
hunting down their connections to China, where they get the chemicals they need to make it? We should be treating them like Osama bin Laden. We really should be. And those cartel guys, and if Mexico doesn't want to help us, fine. We're going to do it ourselves. You know what I
Right.
mean? Stay out of our way.
Yeah, that's
And
going
you
to
know
be
what?
necessary.
We're going to secure these borders, and you know,
Yeah, just
heaven
recently
forbid we get
I heard
caught.
that there was, I think that the head count. I hate to say it so abruptly, but so boldly. There was I think almost 90 people in 1 month in San Francisco that died of fentanyl overdoses, specifically, just in San Francisco alone. Which I think San Francisco is a population of like 500,000 people, and it's a very small. It's actually a very small. The actual city of San Francisco is very small in comparison.
I would be. I think that we could, at this point, you could almost say that 3,000 people are dying a day from opiate overdoses,
Sure.
right?
Right.
And so you're having a 9/11 every single day.
That's a good way to
Every
put it.
day there's a 9/11, and no one's freaking out about that, right? Every day, it's
I'm
crazy.
getting. I don't know what.
There's no consequences. There's no consequences. Everyone can steal what you can go to. San Francisco doesn't even have any major shopping anymore, right? This beautiful, great, vibrant city that had some of the best shopping in the world. It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed to even say I live close to San Francisco or Sacramento.
Yeah,
You know what
so
I mean?
3,000
It's a
3,000
shithole.
people a day would be about 1 million people a year. So it's definitely safe to say at least 300 people are dying every day if it's 100,000 a year or
Right,
more. And
right.
that's just what we're hearing, right?
Okay, so every 10 days we have a 9/11, right?
Yeah, every 10 days.
Every 10
Sure.
days is a 9/11.
So how much
And
worse
we're
does it have to get until how much worse does it get in your opinion? Because again, if anybody's just jumping on right now, Juan has served our country. He's served our country not just in our military, but also in the police force. He's a business person, has owned multiple businesses, currently does, has a family, has kids, a wife, I'm assuming some pets. And he's definitely a red-blooded American. And what's interesting with your situation is your not just your outlook, but your outward your the force that's exuding out of you in regards to how you're handling the situation, right? Like the way in which you are so boldly and so quickly, so boldly handling this is a beacon for what everybody should be doing, which you pointed out earlier. And how far does this have to go in the situations of 9/11 every 10 days in regards to just simply the opioid overdose alone? We're not even talking about the other problems at that point. How far does this have to go until we say this is fucking it? And how far does it have to go? And also, what do we do? I mean, we can't just obviously point
I
out the
mean,
problems, but
I know that no one wants to hear it, right? No one wants to say that there's going to be a civil war. And it would be weird to have a civil war in America now, because think about it. Like, there's no North and South, right? It's your next door neighbor has a different opinion than you have, right? So
yeah,
that it's actually a scary
it's
thing to think
neighbors.
about a civil war in America, because there's no lines, right? No one's gonna. We can't flee to these, 25 states, and the other people flee to those 25 states. It's a so a civil war is going to be ugly if that ever gets on American soil again. It's going to be a 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional war. It's going to be scary.
I totally
But
agree.
I also think that um, I wouldn't have thought this before, but so many of my fellow veterans are super liberal dudes now. Like, and so I used to think like, oh, if there's a civil war, all of us veterans are going to get together and we're going to kick everyone's ass, right? But even veterans are very much on one side or the other, And here's another thing that's crazy. You know who's scared, and you know who's ruined this country is all our older generation now, right? Before we used to respect and love our older generations, and I'm sure there's lots of grandmothers that people have on here, and we love them, respect them, and they have good values, right? But my father-in-laws and my mother-in-laws and people that I respected a lot, because they were old, and they got so scared during the shutdowns. They got
Yeah, you're right.
so I mean, they dissed their family and their grandkids to die alone because they were so frightened of
Yeah,
them,
by choice.
right? By choice, they were frightened of their own. And this is the generation after, it's the baby boomers, right? It's not the greatest generation because they're all dead, right? Pretty much. There's not too many of those guys left. And those are an awesome generation. They care about nothing.
Right. They didn't give a fuck.
There's a dust bowl. Okay, well, we're gonna get on our feet and walk over to California and go pick from the fields, right? And this is like Oklahomans, and
Yeah.
Those guys were the real generation. Oh, there's a war in the world. Okay, so we're sending all our boys. Oh,
Yep.
we need to make some tanks. Okay, women, get your freaking drills. Let's go. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it was a different time. But they created they were a hard generation, but they created a soft generation, and so their children, the baby boomers, are just these terrified old people, and it's sad. Like it's sad. I don't want to feel like sound like I'm disrespecting older people, but that generation is terrified of everything. They
Well,
want to
you are
give
right.
everyone 100% chances, over and over. Oh, and if they're a person of color, then we should ask forgiveness. Like all these concepts are coming from these baby boomers, right? And then they spoon feed them down to their children, and their children, to theirs. I feel like there's a resurgence, but we'll get to that later. But but we just have all these old people making terrible decisions, and and I don't know how we can fix that or just wait for that
Right.
generation to pass. It's a
Yeah.
scary thing because I mean people are hugging through trash bags like their mothers and their grandchildren. Like how do you
Right.
pick that? How do you choose that? Like why don't you just man up and like some of you guys fought in Vietnam. Like why are you afraid of
Yeah.
COVID? You know what I mean? Quit
Sure.
being scared. You know.
It's
And again, I know that
interesting.
sounds like really shitty of me to say, but I've been thinking
Yeah.
about it a lot. Like these old people are freaking scared. Like you know, I know a person who's a Marine, fought in Vietnam, and he's terrified of COVID. I'm like,
Wow.
bro, you're a killer. Like, did you forget who told you that you're not a killer anymore? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's
Quit being
interesting because Rochelle is on here and she just mentioned something very interesting too. Because in a way, you can almost think about this as a ploy against what was released in the last couple of years. The whole pandemic was a ploy against the young and the healthy and the old and the sick. It was to convince everybody that, and what she actually said is, this is how they sold us. They sold us the lie through Save Grandma. And that's interesting to put it that way, because that's exactly the position I was in. Was when I decided to go back to work after 3.5 weeks, I'm like, dude, this isn't going to work. Like my kids have to eat, my house has to get paid. Like me and you both know, you don't get to just wait on this and see what happens, especially if you're a business owner, you have a family to provide for. And the first thing I thought was, if this kills me, at the time I was in my 30s, I'm healthy, I have no underlying conditions necessarily, anything that's alarming. I have pretty bad allergies a certain time of the year, but big deal. Other than that, if it kills me, if it hurts me, then we have a way bigger problem. And why not go out at least doing what a man's supposed to do in the end? And that's, I think, what really disturbed me about how many people, with the effects of the ghost town that was created, looking outside my shop windows, looking outside my front door, and everybody just so terrified. But what do you think about that,
Yeah.
with it being something that was sold to us? And was that, well, let me ask it this way. What was your experience with how they sold it to us, other than the obvious, which is fear? Obviously, they made us afraid. They gave us false information. But what was your experience in regards to like how they were trying to convince, especially at the beginning, how they were trying to convince everybody, so, because it obviously worked, to be so scared?
The only thing I can really compare it to or say is that, like, I knew what party everyone was in based on how they reacted to the shutdown, right?
True.
Like, you could tell, like, you could be like, oh, hey, so, you know, like, even like today, every single person, everyone wearing a mask today is a liberal. There's not one conservative dude, or not even one moderate, or not even one moderate Democrat that's wearing that anymore. But it's the people that have so much pride and so much, like, they've put themselves out there and turned into straight up fucking assholes that would have sold their neighbors down into the fucking cart box, right?
Right.
But so now they have to hold on. They have, oh, I'm going to still wear this mask because it's like, I want to go up and give them all a Democrat of the Year award. You know what I mean? Because they're just ridiculous.
Hmm.
And, but that's what they did. I feel like that's what they did. They found these fanatics, right? That scared everyone because for whatever reason, everyone's afraid these type of people, right? Everyone's
Right.
afraid of transgenders. Everyone's afraid of black people. Everyone's afraid of outspoken Latino people. Everyone's afraid of like, oh, I don't want to feel like I don't want to think that I don't like Muslims because, oh, it's a scary, like, like everyone's afraid to say what's really on their mind, right? Like, hey, like, um, so the ones that are super ultra like bought into it, they have to advertise it. They have to push it on their friend, and then the people listening who are so afraid of this lady, you know, they have to listen, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, she's a gay lesbian, you know, person of color. I have to listen to her, and
So
if I
you're kind of
don't, like,
saying that they use the victim mentality to
oh,
project that
for
onto
sure.
people, and they just jumped on it like
Well, did you
wildfire.
ever see the videos of the BLM riders, right? And
Yeah.
so this is the height of, and so they're all these young little white girls, all like lesbian, ugly little emo white girls, right? And
Right.
they're all spray painting BLM all over these city streets, right? And this black chick goes up to her, and I'm sure she's an ultra liberal girl too. She's out there protesting, right? But she made a comment that was like, "Hey, why are you spray painting BLM on these walls? They're going to think it's me.
Right.
You are not our savior. We don't need you to do, we can tell everyone Black Lives Matter. We don't need you, right?" And the girl's like, no, because Black lives do matter. Like, and it needs to be said. And so she's like fighting for this. She wants to feel like a part of this injustice, right? And the only way she can do that is by being an ally, right? And so same with shutdowns. Oh, I have to be an ally to Kimberly because her 98-year-old grandmother happened to die during the COVID pandemic, and
Mhm.
so now there's proof that it happens, and I'm her friend, and I have to show it, right?
Right.
Like, how
So they
would, like, no one
hijacked.
gets to, right? They hijacked all the victimhood, right?
Yep.
Here's another thing too. Listen, old people die, right? So here's what convinced me most about COVID, and has nothing to do with like social stuff, right? It's strictly a numbers game. When no one died of the flu in 2020 and 2021, and everyone died of COVID, but there was still the same baseline numbers, then there was no deadly pandemic, right? If
Right.
if 150,000 people died in the state of California in 2019, and 150,000 died in 2020, and 150,000 died in 2022,
Then
then
it's
it's
not.
not. You're just renaming death, right?
That's all they did.
No one gets, like, you can't tell, like, for some reason the public feels like we get to live forever, and if we don't live forever, it's because we caught COVID, and the only reason we caught COVID is because dumbass Damaris over there with his fucking Primo's pride and his fucking racist. I know he's brown, but he's still racist, right? And
Right.
it's because he fucking opened his shop, right?
Right. So
But
victimhood. They're
it doesn't.
selling the victimhood deep.
It's victimhood, right? But the numbers never changed, right? Just they're, like, you could die on your motorcycle and all of a sudden you're a COVID victim. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was
And that's true.
ridiculous.
They're
It was a
saying it
scam.
now openly. They're saying now that that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened, and that not only did they move the markers for considering somebody having COVID, meaning like if you have the flu, you have to have a certain level of like blood markers. So maybe I'm not using the right words, but you have to have a certain amount in your system, in your blood system, per part for it to be considered contagious or symptomatic. And therefore, if you don't have markers that high, then you don't have the flu, although it's in your blood and there's markers, but it's not high enough to be symptomatic or
Well,
contagious.
that's, because we're in flu season, right? The last month, tons of people were like, "Oh, I got COVID."
Yeah,
Like, people
dude,
are still saying that.
I'm hearing it
Like,
all the time.
you just got the flu, bro. Like, the same flu. You can call it whatever you want, but it's the same flu you got every year before, too, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
And you've heard of the
if you don't feel
placebo
good,
effect.
yeah, like, hey, dude, just go. If you don't feel good, stay home. And
Yeah.
when you're feeling better, go to work. And guess what? If you can suck it up and go to work and you're not sneezing and coughing over people, then get the fucking work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a fuck if you're like, people are like, people are weird, man. There's guys that'll come in with mask on to my shop and I'm like, dude, why are you wearing a mask in my shop? And he's like, oh, well, I got COVID last night. Like, well, are you coughing and sneezing all over people? Are you gonna throw up? What's going on? If you don't feel good, then just go home and then just come back here when you're feeling better and don't wear a mask. I can't catch you with a mask on. If you're not here to rob me, then take off your fucking mask.
Right.
Right?
It's
So-
crazy. People are still wearing masks because you even have the little gremlin that was telling everybody to wear masks at the beginning. You even have him coming on and literally saying to people, to their faces, everything from it works, it doesn't work, to don't work, to this, that. And then he came out and even said that the reason why he said they don't work is because he didn't want you to buy up all the ones that they needed in hospitals. So he's effectively admitting to playing God and lying to you, and then he's saying they don't work. So now so then why was he doing it then? Like, this is so insane that people
That's
don't.
crazy.
Yeah,
Have you seen that
they
reel
accept it.
where it starts? There's a reel where like, oh, if you get this shot, you're not going to get any. They're like news articles, right? Like it's 100% guaranteed you're not going to get any. Oh, it's 98% effective, 97, 96, 95, 94, 93, all the way down to it's not effective at all, all the way to zero. Like there's articles that catalog it, if you watch this video, that it's 100% effective all the way to zero, right?
Wow.
But no one's talks about this. Like, hey, like everyone's admitting, but people are like, get your fifth shot, bro. Like I see, Mr. Pfizer, Taylor Swift guy or whatever his name is, telling people I hear my radio, Martha Stewart's telling me to get a shot. Like I'm like, who are these people? Like
it's crazy too because
everyone forgets to worship God and they worship the Kardashians and the Stewarts and Taylor Swifts of the world. And if they say do it, they're going to do it.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
They're bought and sold, man.
I've been well aware that people they're buying. Yeah, they're definitely and us as a society has been the pure consumers, what they've turned you into. So they've pushed every single agenda that they've wanted to push over the last administration that didn't get passed, that they couldn't get through, that, they're arguing for, anything from open borders to, sending money overseas and bailing people out and even ending wars that they claim to not want to have started, all the way to, making sure that, people don't have their local rights, the constitutional rights being trampled on. And they even wanted, and this is, both parties kind of mixing together,
right?
But they even wanted, on the far left, they even wanted universal basic income. They wanted free healthcare for everybody. They want all these things to happen. And the thing is about the people pushing these ideals, these ideologies, literally are just trying to rob you, whether they're selling racism, they're selling free money, they're selling all of these. You don't need protection, call a cop. You don't need who needs more than 9 rounds? All they're doing is selling you.
There's news articles, and these report. I don't know where they find these kids to report, right? But like, scientific studies show that brown and black people can now be racist.
Right.
Like, what study was that? And like it's only because white people are not the only ones who see through it, right? Brown people and black people are educated. They're highly intelligent, and they can see through the bullshit, right? But so now they got to label those guys racist, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not okay with just naming white people as racist. They want to name anyone who doesn't think like them racist, right?
Yes.
And get this, BLM's calling us fascist, like, and then they're doing fascist shit.
Yeah.
Like
right while they're saying it.
Right. Like keep your title, bro. Like you don't have to give it to us. Like we could we'll just be conservative freaking white ringers, like you don't have to call us fascist, but like, that's what I'm saying. And then people grab onto this. Like my kids, they go to public school, unfortunately, right? Which my youngest won't do that either. But, they're trying to tell me what a fascist is. And I'm like, guys, like, it's so I have, 4 or 5 kids in the public school systems. And if it's not a breeding ground for indoctrination, I don't know what is. You know what I mean?
Right.
I literally have to convince my teenagers on a daily basis that what they're hearing is bullshit, and that's a crazy concept. Like I have to unprogram my children every day when they get home, because they fall for. It's not that they fall for, their minds are being molded, right?
Yeah.
And if we don't, as parents, take time to check and balance all that, these teachers don't give a fuck about our kids. These administrators don't give a fuck about our kids. If they did, they would teach them arithmetic, writing it, and fucking English, right? But they don't. They tell them, about their sexual fucking, preferences and their fucking pronouns. Like, and I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, kids, like, how many of my teachers I knew were gay? And they're like,
0.
what? I'm like, none. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't know if they're straight, gay. I don't care if they had. I don't know if they had kids. I don't know if they had dogs. You know why?
Because they were trans.
Fucking business. Yeah,
I have no idea. Don't care.
Yeah, because they didn't fucking talk to us about that kind of stuff.
Right.
And if anyone asks a personal question, they fucking send them to the principal's office. You know what I mean? But now they want to share and come out to these kids and throw these, and they hide it too. Like California schools up here, they're like, oh, we're having a no bully rally. It's not a no bully rally. It's a gay rally, right? So my kids are going to a gay rally under the guise of, and then so when I call the principal, and I'm like, hey, why didn't you tell me there was going to be a gay rally? Like, I would like my kids to hear from me what I think before they go to school to this gay rally. At least so they have the moral compass in the back of their head from what our family believes, right? I'm not saying don't send them to the rally. I'm not saying they can't be a part of their sex education. I'm just saying that I want to be on the same schedule so I can teach them what I morally believe in, right? And
Right.
so they have a guideline they're hearing, right?
So
But that's what they do. They guise it under no bullying, right? Because gay people are bullied. But and when I look at it in the public, gay people have every right in the world plus some, right? You
sure.
can't. These guys can do no wrong, right? And
Yeah.
it's
They definitely can
it's
do things that if I were to do it, especially in my own
yeah.
community, would
I
not
mean, I can't
pass.
go in the girls' locker room with my dick swinging and just be like, yeah, that's cool, right? I can't
Yeah.
do that,
You're
but they
definitely not
can.
walking around the streets with your pants down in a parade. That's for sure.
No,
That's not
I
happening.
definitely can't do that.
You don't get that
Yeah,
pass.
I don't get to wear a freaking dog mask and a collar and bark at children naked, while humping my fellow dog
Yeah.
in whatever.
No, you're right.
But they
That
get to do.
stuff.
They literally get to do that.
Yeah. So again, with all the stuff that's happening, if you look at most of all these situations, if you look at all the stuff we've talked about from the perspective of, if something doesn't make sense to you, then you could probably just guess it's because it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to make sense. Like, again, going back to like, why would you shut down local businesses? Don't you know that's the lifeblood of our communities? Yeah, they know. They don't care. When they put
Yeah, and
masks on
it's just
us.
like this dude Mike Connor on the comments. He's like,
Mhm.
hey, there's 40 more billionaires created, and and that's true. That's true. There's all those people. A lot of people got rich, and it wasn't us. It wasn't
Right.
small businesses,
Yeah.
right?
They
Costco
know
got
what they're
rich. Walmart
doing.
got rich.
Yeah,
They knew
this
what they
is
were doing.
not by the flying by the seat of their pants at this moment. What
This is
every,
it was a land grab. It was a land
yes,
grab.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Like
Yeah, I mean, why is one
crazy.
of our richest people in our country right now buying like all the farmland? Like literally, I think he's the number one farmland owner at the
Yeah, Bill
moment.
Gates.
Yeah, and he's one of the
Yeah.
most like unhealthiest looking people, and he pushed more than just about anybody, and laughs at our faces when he says that it's going to happen again. He's going to shut us down, or he's going to.
And you
He's
see
not
it. You
necessarily
see
doing it, but he's pro
you
it.
see him at the U.S. Open watching the guy that refused to get the COVID shot.
I didn't.
Yeah, he's at he's there at a Pfizer sponsored U.S. Open watching that one Slavic dude that was like, nope, I'm not getting
Okay.
a jab, and so he finally was able to play in the U.S. Open, won, and there's Bill Gates in the crowd, dude. It's just karma. It's just crazy. Like this world is so crazy, and he's gonna sit there and act like he supported this guy the whole time, right? Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like Governor Newsom's gonna sit there and be like, oh, I care about these people. These no one should have had to shut down. It's terrible, right? Well, hey, you know, I'm gonna tell Gavin Newsom if he ever watches this, put your money where your mouth is. Give me back my license.
Sure.
You feel so bad about what you did, then how about you relicense the 4 people you took their license away from?
Yeah.
That then I might, maybe I'll stop going on your podcast.
Yeah. That's
But I don't think it's gonna happen.
what's fun about talking like this is that I start to feel, and I don't mind this. I think this is a good thing. It's one of the reasons why I like having the show is I start to feel a little bit of hope because we get to not only share whatever we want as long as we have a platform, and if not, we'll do it in person. If we have to do it in person, and then so be it. If we have to do it just our local communities and stuff, but I get to enjoy these kind of conversations and not just back and forths, but people joining and commenting. But I don't know that a lot of people, I don't know because I own my own business. I work in my own business. I set the parameters for my business. I decide. I don't ask for permission. I don't even ask for forgiveness a lot of times. I'm building my life the way I think it should be ran. And I don't think a lot of people get, and I would actually like to ask the people in the comments too, and you too,
Yeah.
Juan, do you think that people really have opportunities like this other than obviously maybe at a barbecue or I don't know, hang out with their friends? I don't know what normal people do. I don't hang out in groups, so I don't have any
I
friends.
honestly,
only
I
have a
honestly
podcast.
think people are scared to talk like this, man. There's very few of us out there. Like, like your listeners tonight are a rare breed, man. Like, no one wants to hear this anymore. Like, but it needs to be said. This stuff needs to be talked about. Like, what do you think our fourth? Do you think like? And here, check this out. You know, the people that signed the Declaration of Independence and started the Revolutionary War and all that. Some of these dudes were like 18, 19, 20-year-old dudes,
Yeah.
right? Having families, having farms, but they were young motherfuckers, right? And you think they sat around and were like, yeah, like the Brits are okay, like it's cool what they're doing to us. Like we're just gonna have to
Yeah.
suck it up.
We'll just see where it
This is how
goes.
it's always gonna be. Yeah, it's it's just this is the way it is. No, they were mother effing the Brits and coming up and you know what? They were stocking weapons and ammunition and hiding gunpowder and having secret handshakes and going from here to there and whoever would listen that would listen, they were having those conversations and we need to have those conversations again. And remember that our nation is built on rebellion, right? And we need to be rebellious. And if you know, supposedly written in the Constitution is are ways for us to like revolt against tyranny,
Correct.
because every government needs a reset and it needs to be checked, right? That's why there's we the people, right? We need to check these guys. And we need to come up with some ideas on how to do it. And if they don't listen, we're gonna have to make them listen. But these
So-
are conversations that people are afraid to have, I think.
So can we talk a little deeper about that on how we get people not just to listen and how to share these things, but some of the actions we can take, some of the things we can literally do? Because there are, surprisingly, I think, way more of these conversations obviously happening. They're just not making mainstream. And there's also a lot of people doing something about this that are bringing things to light, whether it's through interviews or through documentaries or through businesses they're opening locally, or even just things they're just simply not supporting. I'd be interested to see what sort of ideas or things that you can see right now that we can partake. Even just let's say the average person who wore a mask, bought into the ideas, and then started realizing there's some bullshit. It woke them up, kind of like you were saying, as a big awakening, even for the right, is that people started to see, wait a second, I'm looking into this. I'm starting to realize vaccines maybe were kind of hoax. All these people got rich and it made us sick, and they don't even give the vaccines to their own kids, but we have to do it. They don't even send their own kids to the wars, but they send us. What do you think of some of the things that people can do? And by the way, it looks like somebody on here is saying Selena says hi, Dada. I don't know if you saw that comment. I just had to throw that in there.
Oh, it's my wife, Belinda.
There you go. What's up, Belinda?
Selena.
Thanks for being in here.
I think there's been a couple really good things that have happened that I'm really surprised about, like the whole Bud Light thing, the whole Liberty Safe thing. There have been some like consumers have a lot of power,
Sure.
right? Like I'm pretty impressed with that with the Target boycott. That hurt. I mean, it's hurting these people, and they're quickly taking action on when it hits the money belt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Target within days took out all that satanic jewelry and whatever else they were selling,
Right.
and and that's what they do. They the whole Gay Pride month, right? So Target's probably been selling Gay Pride merchandise for the last 4 or 5 years at least every June, right? But this year they snuck in Satanism and under the guise of Pride, right? And we caught it, and we're like, no, you don't get to do that, And what happened? We boycotted them, and they lost billions of dollars within 2 weeks. And then guess what? All that stuff's gone. And you would hope that they would wait a couple of years until they tried again, right? But when they do it again, we got to do it again,
Right. So it shows you that
So
there's a big
there's
group.
there's power.
Yeah.
There's a big group. There's money. I definitely think we need. I don't see why anyone over 70 years old is in politics. Why are we letting old people tell us how to run our country that they're not even going to be around for? Right? We need 30 and 40-year-olds running this country, 50 and 60-year-olds guiding those guys, right? But after that, get out. You're done. You don't. If I can't trust you to watch your grandchildren for 3 hours at a time, why are you going to make decisions for? And I don't mean that in a mean way. Grandpa's
it's reality.
He's served his time. He's watched his kids. He's watched his grandkids. He doesn't need to watch his great grandkids. That's not his job.
Right.
He's done his job, right? Now it's time for the next guy to do his job, right? So we definitely need term limits. I say 4 years for everything. 4 years Senate, 4 years thing, and then you do 2 terms, right? 2 4-year terms. And if you want to stay in government, then you got to go get elected to a different seat and something else. If you've already been a congressman or already been a senator, then try for president or something else. But you don't get to do anything over 8 years, right?
Yeah, I
4-year
like
terms,
that.
2 terms.
I think that's been I've heard that said a lot. I definitely agree with it. And I think it makes room for people. There's a lot of people that know, well, they get asked often. Like I've seen a lot of interviews with people who say, why don't you run for Congress? Why don't you get into politics? How come you're not a mayor? How come you're not doing? And some of these people are starting to now, it's weird because some of these people are, ex-military, but they're also now, maybe they're retired and they're now business owners. And people are asking them, and I actually believe, because I think one of the most patriotic things, for me, I think one of the most American things you could ever do is first put God first, put your family second, and then put your community and your country third, and so on and so forth. And until that shit's right, I just think we're bass-ackwards. And I think a lot of these guys are starting to realize that they're getting asked, and even though they don't necessarily want to, they know that it's a duty. And I have a feeling there's a lot of that type of rhetoric with, people that should be stepping up and that could be stepping up. They maybe don't want to.
I agree. I think we've lost that. It's God, family, country. And that's such a huge thing that you really think about. Um, we've lost it. I mean, I think less than 10% of Americans go to church
Yeah.
every Sunday, and me included. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm some holier than thou, but we've lost it. We've lost the will and the desire and the excitement of talking about God and being around His presence. Right?
Right.
We don't believe it. For some reason, we don't believe in it anymore. We
Yeah.
think like, oh, if you're just a good person, you're going to be reincarnated into a rainbow, and a unicorn's going to fart out your
Yeah.
kids, and
And then all of a sudden everything's good.
yeah, everything's gonna be good. Like that's not true. There's a heaven and there's a hell, and like there's consequences, and those consequences could be good or bad, right? And our family is more. Like I think that's where I've matured a little bit, right? Since I turned like 30, 35, 40. I used to think that country was more important than my family, but I don't believe that anymore. I think you're right. I think that our family comes first before our country, because our country doesn't care about us. We're just another number and taxpayer, right? And that's
Right.
a harsh lesson I learned. It's a hurtful lesson that I learned, but it's true. Do I love America? Absolutely. Do I still think it's the greatest country on earth? Yeah, because I've seen so many other countries, right? But this country has no love for me. It doesn't
Right.
love me. It doesn't reciprocate the love I have for it, right? So,
Maybe a different way to
so
say that is the government in this country, because I would bet you that plenty of people, I would guarantee you, if we could just bottle everybody up into two categories of people who are with you, at least let's say 65, 75% of what we're saying, they're with you and they would support you in at least most of it. I bet you that group would outweigh the other group by far.
I agree with you, but and the problem with any state, and actually the whole United States, right? You look at the days, you look at the people who vote red, you look at the people who vote blue, and it's by area. The map is damn near all red except for every major city. There's these blue
Right.
marks. With those blue marks in every city and across America, run this nation,
Yeah.
right? And it's weird how how so densely these people are put together, and they can run. I mean, they're in charge right now. They have every avenue of power right now, and that's including all these three-letter agencies. It's scary that the FBI is actively going after Christians and Catholics and people that are anti-abortion, or what I mean, like anti-trans, or don't want their kids to read pornography in school. Like, now we're enemy number one, right?
Sure.
It's crazy, but we definitely need to put God first. We need to put our family first, and then get on track. But I will say that I think for some reason, I don't know what it. Honestly, I don't know what it is. But your guys your age and my age are not running for politics, and we should be. Guys that are in their 30s and 40s should be running this country, but that's not the case. I don't know if these older politicians and CEOs and have set such a presence, and held on to their careers for so long, like for dear life, that it's made people think like, oh, well, then they're not 60, they shouldn't be president. You know, like like there's no more young dudes running things, and it's weird.
That is kind of
I
weird.
don't know.
I think a lot of it.
People are anti our age group. I don't know why.
I think what's happening is, uh, well, if I could give you, since we've actually, if anybody's watching this, paying attention at this moment, and just jumping in, I mentioned it a little bit before, but me and Juan have never spoke before, really, in any intensive way, other than just setting up this show. So I had no real idea what this conversation would exactly entail, other than I assumed the premise would be something like what it is now. But there's always this part of me inside that's like, do I really want to bring up certain things? Like, do I really want to, growing up, what were we told not to talk about? The two things at the dinner table everybody knows:
Religion and politics.
And I think that was cowardice. I think that was an unfortunate.
And that's because you and I. That's because you and I were raised by baby boomers, or very close to baby boomers, right? And that's what they somehow. And you know why? Because these Rockefellers and these big DuPonts and all these, they knew that if the only way they could hold on to their family wealth was to teach their workers that, hey, you don't have a place at the table. Just be quiet. Don't talk about religion. Don't talk about politics. You're not a player because you don't have the money. And the reason why these older people, these Pelosi's, these Feinsteins, these even these senators like Lindsey and Graham and all these guys that are like older than shit, right? The reason why they're a shoo-in every single time is because they're sponsored by Pfizer. They're sponsored by Microsoft. They're sponsored by fucking BlackRock. They're sponsored by all these big, humongous corporations. So when grassroots guys like you and me are like, want to say enough's enough, all they got to do is dump $100 million into their campaign, and we can't compete, right? Yeah. So these corporations are keeping our age group out of it, right? Because they don't want us to take the reins, because they know that these old guys are bought and they have dirt on these guys, and there's no way that they're going to go against what they want, right? And you and I don't have, we're not bought, and we're not, no one owns us, right? And so we're going to say what we're going to say, and that scares them. That scares them. They're going to be like,
catch fire,
right? And so they're cock blocking our age group out of politics, and like you said, we were taught not to get involved in it, right? So that's our parents' faults too.
I think what you're saying is very one of my points that I like to make probably daily. I guarantee you, Juan, I bore people endlessly with these types of topics because a lot of times I'm talking, mainly because I don't ever fucking stop. Even when I'm tattooing, if you're going to sit in my chair, you're going to hear some shit. And it's not necessarily because I'm preaching, but I'm sharing my truth. And I do what I do because it's what I want to do, and I'm going to share what I want to share if I feel like it. And I really don't concern myself with people's feelings.
Hey, I will say that the number one thing about yours and my industry, and our industry actually, is that we can say whatever the fuck we want, right? Because no one's our boss. And
what someone's going to do, say, hey, we need to find this guy's workplace and fire him.
Yeah, you're going to fire me from my clientele?
From me?
Yeah. So and that's I do the same thing. When people are in my shops and I'm there, I'm gonna talk about whatever the fuck I want. And guess what? Like when people are offended because they have little kids there, I'm gonna be like, well, you can shelter your little kid, or you can be a boss and bring him around. The last place he's allowed to be a little man and hear about things that maybe make you uncomfortable, but they need to be said. Like barbershops and tattoo shops are the last place that we're allowed to be men. There's no emasculation going on. There's, we can talk about violent things. We can talk about, godly things. We can talk about politics
and disagree.
We can talk about whatever we want and disagree. And, and still that's what men do. Right. And these boys need to be taken to barbershops by their dads. And these boys need to, like, there's so many moms, bless their hearts, that take care of these boys because their dads aren't around.
Yeah.
But you need to have good men around your boys. Right? Because we got to stop emasculating these men. You want us to be leaders, you want us to be providers, then stop telling us not to be violent. Stop telling us not to be, like we're toxic. Stop telling these boys that they're not, it's not their place to tell a woman, she's beautiful, right? Like, oh, you can't say that to a woman anymore, right? Like, so when are we supposed to fall in love with these women and protect them and want to provide for them? When are we supposed to want to, like, give our everlasting last breath to them if we're not allowed to be men?
Sure.
And these mothers think they're doing the right thing, and some of them really truly have the best interest of their boys in mind. But only men can validate men. Women can't do it. You know, if you're looking for your girlfriend to validate you, it's not going to happen. You
That's
need
interesting.
other men.
How
Your
did you
mom
learn
can't
that,
validate you.
Juan?
You know, you know. I feel like some of my friends told me that, and I read a good book. Gosh, I wish I could. It's like Boys in the Wild or something like that. It's written by a Christian author, and it's like, hey, like men have these skills that are have been inbred to us for thousands of years, like hunting, right, and fighting, and being violent and being protectors, and that used to be something to be proud of. We used to be able to point our guns and play bad guy and good guy, right? You know why there's no more line defining bad men and good men? It's because we're not allowed to play fucking cops and robbers. You
Right.
know, we'll get suspended from our fucking schools. Our kids can't run and chase girls and tag them, right? Because you can't do that anymore, right? Because you can't tell a woman she's beautiful anymore because that's you're a creep, you're a fucking asshole. Like, how dare you assume? You know, like, so these men are like more and more and more emasculated and timid. And, you know, you look at every single TV show,
Oh
every
man.
guy, every father's a fucking bum-tard fucking fool that
Yeah.
is only good enough to laugh at. That's it. That's the
Or
only
it's a
reason the
bunch of
father's on
men's that
TV.
live, a bunch of dudes that live with girls or are best friends with girls and hang out with girls and do like they just hang out.
Yeah.
There's not a single masculine man, and if it is, it's very fucking rare. Although women respond really well to it, they don't want you to be conditioned for it. They want to be you to be conditioned to seeing the kind of man they want to create, which is, I call it the Great American Blood Bag. Because we are the most resourceful, resource filled, resource rich people on the planet. We're industrious, we're smart, we're hardworking, we don't give up. We fight for our women and children, which is much different than the Far East and much different than the majority of the world, as a matter of fact. And they definitely, so, you know, a country, if somebody wants to take over, they don't go and kill the women and the children. If somebody wants to take over a country, they don't go and seize the men and keep them and kill the women and children and forget about everything else. They don't keep the men and the gold, right, for a reason. It's not just because
Right.
girls are pretty. It's because they can, you know, oppress them. Well, what's interesting is with men today, I honestly think this is a slow death that we're experiencing. It's a very conniving, incredibly well thought out. And you know what? Kudos, or at least a little bit of a sort of low five to the people who figured this plan out, because I hate to say it might be one of the most genius situations, war tactics we've ever seen, because here we are saying, man, I'm surprised September 11th hasn't happened again. Are you serious? Oh, I'm surprised. You know, if they shut down again, you know, I'm not going to be quiet, and I'm not going to abide. Yet you're afraid of every other law that's unconstitutional, and that you don't even have. It's not even a constitutional situation, and you're still abiding. So, and it's unconstitutional for you to not own certain things in this country that go pew pew, and it's unconstitutional now. It's for them
Well,
to silence us, but yet here we are,
it's,
just accepting it.
if you look at the you know what I took away from that video, as sad as it was, that video of those festival goers, right?
Yeah, that was
Those
terrifying.
festival goers that were terrified by Hamas, and they were running, thousands of them running, right? And they didn't know it, but there was probably only 15 shooters,
Yeah,
right? And there's thousands of these Israelis, right? And these men were running faster than the women.
yeah,
You know, that's what I saw. I'm like, why are these people who have been sought after to be murdered their whole for generations upon generations before like during the Bible times, right? Where are the warriors of this nation? Where
hmm
are the Hebrew men that will charge these shooters, right?
yeah,
There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these men, right? And
thousands.
there's
Yeah,
yeah, of these men in this festival, and there's only a few shooters. Where why are they running faster than the women? You know, why
did
were
you
all these
see?
women kidnapped?
And I hate to bring this up because, you know, I don't like saying names, and I don't like to glorify anything, of course, but I also, you know, it's you can get into the weeds with some of these things, but just to kind of parallel that universe with the Las Vegas incident that we had recently at a concert. If you've seen the footage, it's men literally. I've seen it once, and I didn't see it all. I don't get any enjoyment, of course, from watching those things. It doesn't draw me in. I see what I need to know to get the point, and I'm out. And I saw just a quick clip, and it was a few different ones of men throwing themselves on perfect strangers, and dying. They're gone, and saving lives potentially. I don't know the statistics, but I do know that there's video footage of multiple different men throwing themselves on perfect strangers to protect them, guarding them like a human shield. And that is 100% American. And I'm not saying that men out there have this duty to go be a shield or to go and sacrifice themselves for some greater good.
I'm
I'm not
saying
saying they
it.
have to,
I'm saying it.
but I'm saying that
I'm saying men need to be the shield of their nations. They need to be
yeah,
the leader of their nations, the providers of their nations, the rulers of their nations, and I'm not saying women don't have a place. Obviously, they're
of
the
course they
only
do.
reason we're gonna.
We wouldn't be
The
doing
only
this without
reason
them.
we do. Yeah, the only reason we're doing what we're doing is to provide a life and a legacy for our women and our children, right? So they definitely have a place, and their place is such a respected place that we don't want. I don't want my daughters to need to be drafted into our military. I
Yeah,
don't want
that's
that,
ridiculous. No
right?
way.
If they want to serve, good. If they, but why should our nation? Do we have so many coward men that we can't draft our men before our women? Like
Right.
we're not that equal.
Yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. No,
We need to be.
I agree. That what I was saying to that is men don't have to go do those things, and the men that did it didn't have to do those. It's not a law. There's
Right.
not a rule, but we did that. We do those things because that's the American culture that we still is obviously still well alive today. And
Right.
some people
And
I
that
think
does make me proud.
yeah, we get disgruntled sometimes because it's easy to see the political moves that are made, which everything for quite some time now has been turned into a political ploy. Everything from sports to music to sex to parades to your cars to what you're driving or not, what you're wearing or not. I mean, what you say, what side, what color. It's all politicized so deep now that we're in turf wars. But it's easy to get caught up in that and forget that this country really is truly a remarkable place. Although we're the most enslaved financial people on the planet that have ever lived, there's more resources being sucked out of Americans today than any humans ever in the world history that I've ever heard of. And sending off the amount of riches that we are while we have to be busy little worker bees, it's amazing. It is amazing still that men like you, and I will also throw in quite a few people that I know that I grew up with that are just unbelievable, remarkable examples. But just they're steadfast. They're not right about everything. They're not perfect. They're not polished. They're not necessarily from an outside perspective. They don't have that Newsom slick looking greasy smile, but they're hardworking, badass, industrious motherfuckers, and there's a lot of them.
Politicians have never worked a day in their fucking lives. It's crazy. Like, what job has Joe Biden had? That guy's never worked a day in his life. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
you're exactly right. I mean, what has the government ever made that you wanted?
Yeah.
How do they
Yeah.
have so much control and money? And what do you want that the government has? But what do you have that they want?
If you want it, they regulate it. If you want it, they regulate it, right?
They take it and then tell you how to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
crazy.
exactly it. That's why I call it the Great American Blood Bag, because I look at it as men and women, all of us together, the workforce. The men and women of this country have IVs coming out of their arm, and it's making the fat cats fatter and fatter than ever before because we are working harder and harder for less and less than ever before. And that just doesn't mean resources. It means our experiences, our quality of life, our relationships, our families. We're getting less and less involved in these things. We have less and less time and influence on these things, not just money and finances, but also those two. And these fat cats are just getting bigger and bigger, and we're having to work harder and harder, and they're getting more and more brazen with it to the point now because they know that they've got us right where they want us. And I think that the shutdowns were just simply a move to expedite that process with lightning speed. And so now here we are in this scenario where I think I'll use these sort of stories lightly because I obviously wasn't there, but attacks like Pearl Harbor, a 9/11, historical attacks on America, that woke some shit up. And so I think people have learned, like, hey, let's not go that route. Let's tiptoe. Let's send again, we're the Great American Blood Bags. and they're sending in these new Trojan horses, which are, dude, the new Trojan horse is an elusive son of a bitch. It looks like it's gifts, it's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's likes, it's watches, it's views, it's spanks, it's you don't do this and you'll take that from you, and how dare you, put your old grandma.
It's relevance.
Yeah, it's crazy what they've done, and I hate to say it's genius, but it is. It's mad scientist genius level shit.
It is. It's genius for sure.
So we have to be able to see what those things are. And I think it's really simple. The answer is always the same. The answer never changes. I've said this, and everybody on here that's watching, so far as I could tell. For you new watchers, I appreciate you guys, but maybe you'll be hearing this for the first time. That I say all the time, there's only 4 things a man should do, and there is nothing else. And here's the answer to the world's problems. It always has been, always will be. There is nothing else, and there's no way, regardless of your scenario, whether it's a good country, bad country, or the right way or the wrong way, or good economics or bad, irregardless of your scenario, the truth is a man has to pay attention to his gold, to his God. I'm not saying this in any particular order. I just say your gold, your God, your kingdom, and your strength. That's all you have to do. And they know that. That makes because they have to go into a country and take over to have a full hostile takeover. Today, they don't want that because they want to keep you a blood bag. As a blood bag, you're the most resourceful thing that they got. They want to protect you, but they're still over time sending all these Trojan horses, and all the Trojan horses, they're coming flooding right over our border. They're coming right into our kids' cell phones in their bedrooms all night long. They're coming through our video games and every single thing that really is happening through our TV shows, through policy, through everything they're doing. They're sending in these Trojan horses because they know they can't fuck with us, because if they do, it's happened in the past. It doesn't turn out very pretty. So they found the smart way to do it, and we have to be smarter because they're probably 100 years ahead of us because they have to play the long game because they don't have the strong game. As soon as we are not God-fearing men, we're not industrious, right? We're not family-oriented, and we're not physically and mentally and emotionally, literally strong. We'll never get to whatever it is we hope to maintain, keep, or even ratify, or even amplify whatever this country represents to us that we love so much. We have to have those things. Without those things, that's it. It's a complete halt at that point. And I think that's getting rekindled. What do you think about that, Juan?
Yeah, I mean, dang, I agree with you 100%. Those are definitely some key things. I'm going to even think about that tonight when I go home. But I think that's true too. Like, we have to be able to mind our own business, like all these things. We have to mind ourselves, right? But we also have to be willing to, and that's the thing about the powers that be. They're not willing to share the resources that they've gotten. They're not willing. In fact, they get greedier and greedier the more and more powerful and richer they get. And it's probably not even money that they're greedy about. It's the power.
Yeah, it's not money. It's just an avenue to get more power.
Yeah, it's the power. It's got to be the power. We got to be greedy with our own power and kind of focus on ourselves and see what we can do for ourselves and our families, and to maintain that and our relationship with God. And those are definitely some key: God, gold, kingdom, and strength. That's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, and if we're going to continue being the great American blood bags and the worker bees that we've been, we're going to have to be really careful the way we raise our children. Not just the way we raise them, but in today's world, this is quite an epidemic, a real epidemic. We're going to have to be careful that we're even raising children at all. People talk about population control. They've been trying to sell anti-population for years to scare us, knowing that the baby boomer issue could just be a great way through climate change and through overpopulation and lack of resources that, we're going to run out of this and no polar ice caps by this year, and we're going to be overpopulated. Nobody's going to have any free, and nobody's going to have clean water to drink. All that.
What's crazy?
Go ahead.
I've since I've been around, and I'm only 44 years old, but I've heard about acid rain, ozone layers deteriorating, ice caps melting.
Our whole lives.
I've heard about everything. Like there's always a climate control crisis, and every year it fails. Every year they say, by this time, all this is going to be gone. And it never rings true ever. But what else do they have? The climate control is definitely the power that because it makes us feel like, oh, there's only so much time left before if we don't get solar power
Selling
and buy
fear.
these solar. Yeah, they're selling fear, right? COVID was a fear, but it's something we got over pretty quickly. But climate control has been that's been their angle for decades, man. I mean, I remember watching Captain Planet and that being a thing. I used to be afraid of acid rain when I was a little kid. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Or or my mom using hairspray and the ozone layer was getting deteriorated every time
Right.
she.
I remember they taught us that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, but and that's what so they've been indoctrinating us for decades. Even recycling. They just announced like last year that recycling is a farce,
Yeah.
right?
It's a
American
total
government.
fraud.
It's fraud. They take that stuff and they ship it over to Vietnam and they burn it over there. So they don't care about recycling. They don't care about the ozone. They don't care about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said earlier, lithium mines are the most disgusting, evil things I think humans have ever done to this earth, and
Yeah.
they don't
I totally
care.
agree. It's interesting
They
too,
don't
because I
care.
have it's a loose philosophy because I can't exactly test this. I can just observe this, but I have this philosophy that just about, so far as I can tell, even all the way from the four things I told you a man should do every single day. And when I said those things, it's not just the four things that are important to a man. It's the four things a man should do every single day. If you're anything like me, especially as a business owner, and you're raising a family and you got a wife at home and people that count on you, if you're not making money, if you're not being resourceful, if you're not being productive, and things aren't moving and happening, you probably feel a certain way, and that's a good thing,
Hmm.
right? And I'm not trying to medicate it with the next TV show or taking drugs or trying to go out and party so that I feel better about my lack of my inadequacies if I'm not getting these things going. It's a good signal to have this feeling of like, hey, like maybe don't take such long vacations. People, they rely on you. Maybe one day that happens, but I don't need it. I need to be productive. I need to be
Yeah.
resourceful, and I need to matter.
You know, in my household, I am a big believer in being a provider for my wife and children. Um, like we just bought our first house about a week ago
Hmm.
together, and we've had the keys for like 7, 8 days, and I've totally demolished that house and getting it ready for professionals to come in and make it look beautiful. Right? We're not going to move in until it's done, but I have an urgency to do this. Right? I have an urgency, and then at the same time, I have an urgency to go to work and make money, so I can provide for all this, and I have an urgency to build more shops so that each one of my children can get one of my shops. What I don't care what they do with it, but I just want them to have one, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're trying to leave them something, not money. I'm not going to try to leave them like $100,000. I want them to have something of substance, and they can do whatever they want with it, right? But I want to provide. That's my biggest thing is providing for my wife and my kids, um, and so even I've even taken a step back and been like, because I usually open a business a year, right? Since I've been doing this, and I'm like, wait, I'm forgetting about my family. Like, we need a house, and yeah, it's cool. I got 5 shops in 5 years, but my kids need a house.
Yeah.
So like, it's good to like you said, reassess every day, like what we need to be doing,
Hmm.
and I think that's part of being a man. It's like, hey, are we going to provide today? And how are we going to provide? Like, do we need to take this vacation? I don't, but you know, it's everyone's so worried about IG and how we look, but sometimes just working hard. Man, and I never got this about dads, right? Like that don't want to pay their child support or be with their kids, right? Like, I take a lot of pride, even when I divorced my ex-wife. Um, I took a lot of pride in paying her child support, even though I knew it was bullshit, right? Like I worked all these hours, I made, but you know what? In my mind, I'm like, you know what? Whatever it takes, and I don't care. It sucks that if she spends it all and she doesn't spend it on my kids, who cares? Like, no one will ever say that I didn't pay or I was ever late, right? And then when they get to my house, they're gonna have everything they need and then some, right? Like, I took a lot of pride in that. Where other guys are like, man, I can't believe I have to pay this and that, and but then they're ducking and dodging, seeing their kids. Oh, like I see them every other weekend. Like, how do you see your kids every other weekend, bro? Like,
Yeah.
be a dad. Like,
Yeah. I
if they're
think you're
not
pointing
around,
out probably the most
if you're not
important
around,
thing. The most
or if you're not
important thing
around
in this
your
country is that.
family and your boys, I mean, our country's doomed if our boys don't get back on track. I was telling you earlier that, I cut a lot of young men, and I feel like there's some sort of turn going. Like, I feel like these young men, these 10 to 18-year-olds are starting to like get a clue, like, hey, being lazy is not what's it about anymore. You know what I mean? So I see some hope for this country. And I think now is a time to really, as fathers, to really focus on our boys and our girls, and and teach them that, hey, we all have a place. And, as a wife and as a husband. And why is that so taboo? Why is it
Yeah.
so taboo that I'm your husband? Why is it so taboo that you have to be a wife? Why? It shouldn't be like that. It
Right.
should be something we're proud of. Um, and I'm proud when my wife can say, "Hey, yeah, that's what I want," and then I can do it. I'm proud of that.
Yeah. That's a
So
good feeling.
we do have to focus on ourselves and our families and our relationship with God. Um, and I don't like the idea of living in fear either. Like, like of the next civil war. But am I also not like, I'm ready for it?
Sure.
You come and fuck with my fucking family in my community, and
Yeah.
you try to invade us, you're gonna get murked,
Well,
right?
one of the problems with that, I haven't heard that word in a long time. I like that. One of the problems with the way people react today to things is they're so medicated through literal medication,
Mm,
through information porn, and attention porn,
hmm
literal porn, all these things are so
hmm
medicated that when they have to deal with anything of any actual substance and you can't just swipe right and left and get the new subject, uh, it, obviously this isn't my audience because we've held the attention of at least 20 of you for the last almost 2 hours, and yeah, 2 hours and counting. And but a lot of these people are just obviously trained through many ways to just get the next thing. And I think a lot of times what happens is people get hijacked, and it turns us into, well, obviously it turns us into weaker people. And I think a lot of people are just, I don't know about young people yet. I don't know. I have a lot of hope, but I don't know. But it will take one. I'm willing to say this. It will take men like you, right, that are going to say, look how much satisfaction it brings me to provide for my family. Look how much, in a non-condescending way whatsoever, look how much happiness it brings me to be responsible for people. Nothing has made me ever feel better as a man than
You're
having
right.
more responsibilities.
When you and I were kids, we couldn't wait to leave our house. Now these boys
They don't
and
want
these
to go nowhere.
girls they're like 30 years old,
Yeah.
and they're staying with their moms and dads still, and their mom and dads are giving them excuses like, oh well, it's expensive out in
It's hard.
California.
It's
It's hard, yeah.
terrifying. And
Like,
yeah.
well,
So what's
I guess they
interesting,
should
Juan,
go
is
fucking eat
that
some ramen noodle.
you have a whole country now too that's, well, I'm not going to say a whole country. You have a portion of the country that buys into the narrative that learning guns, for example, you go back east or you go to some of these more red states, or at least communities. These people teach their kids how to handle firearms at a very early age, because my kids have to learn.
Hmm
They're going to be around them. I have them. You're going to learn how. And does that? I know the answer, but how do you respond to people saying, "Oh, doesn't prepping, doesn't stocking supplies, doesn't learning?" Like, I'm building out kits for my kids to have full on like battle ready vests, helmets,
hmm
everything they need, and to practice and use it. It's very expensive, but it's something that I actually
It
enjoy
is.
doing. But does it create more or less fear by thinking so much about personal protection?
I don't think so. I think it creates a confidence, right? If you're confident that you can hack into the battlefield, like, I mean, that's why Marines are such warriors, right? It's because we're prepared. We train over. It's miserable 90% of the time, but that 10% of the time is you're so confident and so cocky, and that bravado, that esprit of the Corps, and all that stuff, right? That should be every American citizen. Everyone should know that. Hey, like, when it comes down to it, I'm gonna get after mine, and I'm gonna protect my family. And you know what? If they kill me, fine. But there's gonna be 5 dead motherfuckers around me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so,
I've always,
w-
even as a cop, I used to think that, like, you know what? I'm not afraid of these guys in Oakland and Richmond. I'm gonna go in there, and if I die, my kids will know that there's 2, 3 dead bad guys around me. You know what I mean? Because I'm not
yeah,
gonna die for nothing. You know what I mean?
yeah, and
I'm gonna get
I think
mine.
that's a
That's a great way to think about things.
yeah. So I want you to expand on that a little if you can. That how does that feel as a man, as a father, right? As a provider, a protector? How does that feel? Like, what's the actual feelings inside of Juan when you explain that right now? Because I think this is something that gets tossed around a lot and gets confusing to people, especially women hearing that. I got a lot of women watching. Most of my viewers are women. Thank you, ladies. What does that feel like as a man to be able to provide that and to know that you're not only willing to die, which we obviously know is part of our American culture. It's demonstrated for hundreds of years now. What does that feel like to you, Juan?
Oh man, it gets me fired up, man. Like, I really truly believe, like, I feel like something's going to come down in the next, let's call it 50 years, and I'm going to be so disappointed if it's not me instead of my kids fighting, right? Like, I want to do it so they don't have to. I've always been like that. I've always wanted to get into it so they don't have to. Does that make me weird or crazy? I don't think so. Do I want them to be prepared? Like, my son's 19 now. Like, he's gonna have to start taking on his own responsibilities and protect himself and govern himself and read through people's bullshit and be ready to do. And so there's a book called The Art of Killing. Have you heard of it?
The
It's
Art
written
of
by
Killing? I don't know. I've read The Art of War.
maybe it's no, it's called On Killing. On Killing. It's written
Okay.
by some army colonel, and it's such an interesting book because, and it's made me think. I mean, I've talked to my wife about this. Like, like I could kill almost anything, right? But do I know how to butcher a pig? I really don't, right? Do I know how to butcher a deer or a fowl or a fish? Like,
Right. Be
I've
resourceful.
never been a hunt. Yeah, like I feel, but it used to be like every boy in America used to kill pigs
Sure.
and gut them and butcher them for their dad in the barn and put deer on a tree and gut it and skin it, right? Like, we're definitely getting away from,
Yeah.
because we're such a meat package world, right? Like, if I want meat, I just go to Costco and get some meat, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know anything about butchering, and I've thought about this since I've read the book like a month ago, and I'm like, damn, I'm gonna go enroll in a butchering class,
Interesting.
just so I have an idea of how to skin and gut an animal, and then you know break it up into edible pieces, right?
What's kind of
Because
crazy that you're
I
saying
think that's
this,
coming.
and it's crazy to think this because I haven't butchered an animal aside from buying a turkey and preparing it, or whether it's got its innards or not. I haven't
Right.
butchered an animal since I was a teenager, and it's actually kind of crazy to hear. And I'm not picking on you, obviously, because I'm in the same camp. It's crazy to hear a grown ass man say what you just
Yeah.
said. It's kind of wild,
Like,
actually.
I've smelled blood and I've shot things before and they've died, right? I've been around a lot of dead bodies, but so there is like an awe when boys have never seen anything like that, right? And so then when we take them out of these farms and we all they know is processed food, right? And they've never seen another farmer cut the throat of a pig and smell the blood and heard the scream. Then it's this like very very scary thought that they might have to protect themselves and do this thing called killing, right? Where, and of course we don't want like crazy killer kids, you know what I mean? Like, we don't want any like weirdos, right? But we just want, we need to get back into familiarization of
Yeah, and
providing for ourselves.
you talking about the weirdos is a fascinating point to the facts that these people that let's say using I love the term gun violence because I want to make a shirt that says we need to stop car violence, we need to stop foot violence, we need to stop hand violence, we need to stop hammer violence, and then on the back say we need to also stop gun violence. See how dumb it sounds now? Because
Yeah,
it's a dumb word, but the gun violence is just it should sound absurd to us. It's
it's
crazy
stupid. It's
because
the
violence
stupidest
is
thing.
just violence. It's not what did the violence. So there's
And
a
all
lot
those
of the
things you
people that
listed
are
have killed way more people
sure.
last year than guns have.
Yeah, so
I
the
mean,
people
car
that do like mass
DUIs that are
shootings or school stuff and
right.
events and public displays, these aren't hunters. These aren't people that grew up skinning pigs. These aren't kids at 6 years old whose parents taught them. They'll try to show this in media and in movies growing up. I saw this all the time. The scary dad in the corner cleaning his guns and the kid's scared and mom like, oh, don't let them go around. Tommy's kind of scared of that or whatever. It seemed like it was such a taboo thing. And what's interesting is it's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite when you teach these people they respect life when you take life. If you cannot take life, I personally think, with my experience, there's no way I could respect life at the level in which I do if you've never taken life. There's no way I could know what I know now, because you can dream about what it's like to have to put a horse down or slaughter your own pig you've named and raised since you was a baby, or the chickens, even rabbits, or whatever animal that you loved so dearly. You don't know what that's like until you do it, and it's a whole nother dimension. So if we're alienated from that, then I think we're operating at a subpar level.
One of the first things I don't know what year it was, but it seems like one of the first years as a highway patrolman, this car towing two horses got into a major collision on 8080, and those poor horses were just screaming and broken. And so, I'm like, I'm telling my sergeant, like, hey, we got to kill him. We got to shoot him. Like, let's block the freeway on both sides. Let's kill him, right? And this guy's like, we can't shoot him. We can't shoot these animals. I'm like, well, what are we going to do? He's like, well, I'm like, there's no, fire. Like, Oakland doesn't have a animal rescue fire department truck that can triage these guys or whatever. And I'm like, and so he was just so hesitant, and I was a young Marine, like, that just became a cop. And I'm like, hey, Sergeant, I'll do it. I'll do it. And he's like, okay. Well, so long story short, we did it. And I went up, and we actually have a manual, which is really weird, on how to shoot animals in the roadway like that. Right. And I just remembered reading it. And then I'm like, oh, so I went in real quick and I saw where to shoot, and boom, I put them both down. Right. And it's a different feeling. Like when you're that close and you're doing something, and I was doing it for all the right reasons, and it felt weird. Right. But that other guy would have let them suffer for who knows how long if it was up to him. Sure. Right. And so we have to take charge, and we have to do these things, and it can't be so foreign to us that, like you said, I think that the kids that are the best Marines are the ones that were hunting on their dad's 10,000 acres in Illinois. Definitely. And you just see them shoot and do things, and you're just like, I'm a California kid that grew up in suburbs, and I didn't even touch a gun before I was a Marine. But it's just amazing to see these boys that were from real America doing like real fucking shit. These guys were, teaching me Kentucky windage, and they can shoot anything, man. You're just like, what the hell?
Yeah,
but
and that's something that's lost
the America
in a lot of cities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is something. I actually have a friend, a good friend of mine, who I want to get on this show. Actually, Scholler. He's an awesome dude, and he's worked in Cal Fire. Which means he's worked pretty much everywhere. They ship him off all the time to be a resource in Alaska, back east, the Appalachians, right. I think, even especially locally with all the fires we have here. But anyway, he's done that. He now builds fence, and the reason I want him on my show is because he's a client of mine turned friend. He's one of the most unique people I've ever met. But just to set him up a little, he tells me all the time, like he's a very woodsy, backwoods kind of grunt kind of guy, very rough neck type dude. And you could tell like the kind of guy that if you fucked with him and he pulled a knife out, I'd be turning the other way for sure. He's not a scary guy at all. You just tell this guy is from there, and and a big heart. But I think he would. Yeah, he's a capable man. But
I have a very a lot of, like I said, those Kentucky boys that join the Marine Corps. They're just very capable dudes, right? Where we're taught it, but they already know it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this guy Scholler, hopefully he'll come on the show soon. I'll reach out to him tonight. And he's interesting because he grew up hunting and fishing, but he admitted to me that he's never skinned a deer. His dad loves doing it, so he always takes it. And he's like, now I'm learning how to skin a deer and break down an animal, out in the wild, out in the woods. And it's a nobody really realizes this. If you've never done it, you don't realize the amount of work, the amount of weight, the amount of, carnage that
Oh
also
yeah.
the detail, you literally can't do it wrong. You do it wrong and you've ruined everything. You shoot it wrong,
Yep.
you break it down wrong, you carry it home wrong, you store it wrong, skin it wrong, anything you do wrong, and it's
Oh
ruined.
yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
there's definitely an art to
That's
it.
100% true.
Yeah. So I think
100% true.
it's
And
definitely
that's a
something.
lost art.
I think it should be. I think that should be required even over mandatory 2-year military service. I think that if you're going to eat meat, with the exception of children and women, which I still think if they want to volunteer would be good for them. I know it's good for them, but I also think that they should be more loving and caring, and I think they are naturally more loving and caring. But so I would give them that choice. But I think if you're a
Well,
man and you eat meat, you should have to break down an animal.
women in American history and Native history and all that, dude, they used to,
Oh yeah,
their men might bring them a dead carcass, and they were the butchers, they were the
yeah,
skinners, they were the
absolutely.
stretchers, they were the salters, they were all that. Like it wasn't foreign to them.
Yeah, I
So
gotta point that out then because Natalie's saying I can catch, kill, and gut. My daddy taught me right, and then we got Danbury saying she's killed several chickens, just couldn't do it anymore. Danbury, I've killed more chickens than I could count. My grandma's slaughtered chickens her whole life. There's no way you could know the number. She's never even batted an eye. But then Brody Jane's saying, man can hunt whatever he wants, just don't bring it home with that cute face. It's just interesting. I'm not picking on you ladies. Thanks for sharing. But it's interesting because I think it's just for the simple reason. It's just like a gun. The first time you hold a gun, you're going to get a shock. You're going to be a little alarmed. You're going to feel it's dangerous. It's scary. You're going to feel a sense of fear. It's only for lack of exposure. That's it.
yeah, I think that those primitive moments that you shoot your first gun or you shoot your first animal and you skin and you run around blood, like those are like life defining moments, and I think that's something you can be proud of too. Like, I took my son shooting for the first time. He was, golly, that kid was scared. You know what I mean? But he did it, right? And I'm like, I was trying to stay real calm with him. And I'm like, and he was just proud that he did it. You know what I mean? And then,
Yeah.
like, those are good moments. Those are good moments. Bringing
Juan, let me
those.
ask you this because we didn't really touch on this earlier. I know that during the height of all the shutdowns and the pandemonium and from my position, it seemed to me, so I'm kind of segueing back into the past of our conversation, but
Hmm.
it seemed to me like your experience would probably be, from my end, it looked very hectic. It looked very, it had to be aggravating, although you always seemed super, just like you are now, calm, collected. And inside, even some of the interviews I've seen and some of the things you've said, whether it's in your shop or social media posts or news, there's almost like this behind the scenes guy I can see behind your eyes. It's like, you dumb motherfuckers. Like, but yeah, I'll answer you. But can you tell me a little bit more? Because I'm really fascinated by this, and I know we'll meet again and we'll do a show again. So it'll be great to. I know we're going to get you in the studio. I have a whole nice setup in the back over here that will be really cool to have a personal conversation. But can you kind of share with me some of those experiences? Like from my end, it looks super chaotic, hectic, and just whatever. But you kept this cool, and then behind your eyes, I just saw this. The guy that I get to meet now and see and get to know, I saw it behind there. What was that like for you? Like the news
Um,
part, the media part, the interview part, the you sharing and being, big broadcast really.
so there was this girl in our town, and I don't know why, but she was so afraid to stay open. But she's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Like she called me a couple times, like I heard you're doing it,
Was it a
like
blonde lady?
and I have, yeah,
What?
Serendipity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Gosh, what's her name? I forget her name.
I,
Alicia,
I,
maybe.
she's kind of a tiny girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're
Anyway,
talking
so
about. I
she
watched
owned the
that.
salon, and she's like, "Hey, are you really going to do it?" Because so let me go back. I was part of this like stupid Facebook group that was like, you know, Solana Beauty Network or something on Facebook, right? And there was like a couple thousand girls on it, right? A couple guys, but mostly all women. And they're all salon. But I joined it just because I'm like, okay, because everyone's like posted like little like, hey, so I'm like, oh, Primos is open in Vacaville, blah blah, right? But then right when it started happening, people are like, I'm gonna close down, I'm gonna close down. And I'm like, why are you guys closing? Like, there's no rules. Like, don't let them tell you have to. Oh no, no. And so these girls started fucking attacking me like, like it was crazy, right? And then a lot of the owners that were on there started attacking me because I was like, because these girls were getting on there and they're like, oh, my owner's making me pay rent again, and I didn't even get to work half of last month. But she says if I don't pay rent, I'm going to lose my spot, so I paid rent. And I would tell these girls like, absolutely do not pay rent. Like, if they're not going to let you work, then they're breaching their contract, right?
Sure.
And I'm like, when things are good, those ladies are not sharing their profits with you. So why are they sharing their risk with you? Why are they demanding that you share their risk? It's not fair.
Yeah, that's
Tell
not
them
fair.
when they, yeah. I'm like, so then I had all these women owners like, why are you telling my girls this? Blah, blah. So I had all these like chicks and I was still working, but I wasn't like blasting it, right? But I was just telling them. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? Because I was pissed at all of them. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I literally went home and I made this post like, um, just so everyone knows, I'm wide open, and you're more than welcome to come to my shop. We're not afraid over here, right? And so I basically said we're open, and blasted it out to the whole area.
Yeah.
So this one girl, the blonde girl, she calls me. She says, "Hey, are you really gonna open?" And I'm like, "I've been open. I'm gonna tell everyone I'm fucking open because you guys are pissing me off, right? Because you're being scared." And she's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna do it too, and but I'm not gonna be as discreet. I'm gonna be more discreet. I'm gonna, cover the windows, blah blah." I'm like, "Do whatever you're gonna do, but just be open. Just get open." And so she's like, "Okay, hey, this news lady found out about me and she wants to talk to me. Can I send her to you instead?" And I'm like, "I don't care. Go ahead." So I mean, this all happened in one day.
Wow.
And so this, like 6 p.m., I'm closing up the shop. This news crew comes, and they're like, "Hey, are you open?" And I'm like, "I am, I absolutely am." And so I got like super confident, and cocky, like because I used to interview for the Oakland Highway Patrol when they
Okay.
didn't have like a. They'd always be like, "Hey, who could talk to them about this accident that happened last night?" I'm like, "I'll do it." And I've always felt comfortable around a camera and in front of people. I've always been a good public speaker. Um, so I just treated it just like that. I was just confident. I'm like, "Yep, we're gonna be open. We're gonna, like this is not something we're gonna run from. We're not gonna be afraid of it. You don't have to come here." Basically, like tell them straight up, yeah. And then the very next day, I'm in my winter shop, this shop here, and CNN calls me, and they're like, "Hey, our affiliate interviewed you last night. Do you have time for an interview right now?" It's like 11 in the morning,
Wow.
and I guess over there it was like like 2 in the afternoon because it's Eastern time or whatever. And so I'm like, "Yeah." And so they're like, "You won't be able to see her face, but just set up your phone somewhere and we'll just interview you." So that was my really big interview. And in my mind, I'm like, hell yeah, if CNN interviews me, that means Fox is going to interview me,
Mm.
right? And that just seemed like cool to me, right? And so I didn't know who this girl was. I didn't know she was like a big CNN girl. They just said CNN. And so this lady gets on and she starts talking, and she's actually polite for the most part. People are like, "Oh my god, she attacked you," and I didn't think she was that bad, right? And you can
Well, I
pull it up
think I
still
watched
if you
that
want.
interview. Was there only one on CNN?
Yeah, only
She
one.
actually seemed
And
like she was trained to disagree enough, but really almost just kind of play devil's advocate. She did not seem at all like she was
yeah,
buying into it, like into the bullshit.
yeah.
I would actually say she was probably just acting.
There's only one part where she's like, "Well, I just got COVID and it was like the worst thing in my life." And I'm like, "Well, you're young and healthy, and look
You
at you
beat it.
now. You're back at work." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"I'm young and healthy. Let's do this." And like I think when she found out, like when I told her, like, "Well, I serve my country. I'm a Marine." She had to say the whole, "Well, hey, thank you for your service," right? So it put her off balance. Like she could have just straight up attacked me because then she'll look like an asshole
Yeah.
attacking a veteran, right? Um, so I thought it was a great interview. And I thought that she didn't know what the hell she was talking about, the whole Newsom and the letting prisoners go and all
Yeah.
that.
She was like,
So
"Who?
I
Who's
thought,
shutting you down?" You're like, "What?
yeah,
Like
like,
they're
she
using
didn't know
law
her.
enforcement."
Yeah, so she was full of shit. But anyways, I thought, but I'm talking about the second I hung up from the phone, I had because my all my numbers are public and my accounts are public. I had from the next 24 hours was like people calling all my shops saying, fuck you, you're gonna murder people, you kill my grandmother, I hope your fucking kids die, I hope you die, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you racist, fuck you, every bad thing. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, oh, we're gonna come down here, we're gonna shoot you. I'm like, hey, you know where my shop is? Quit being a pussy and come do it. You know what I mean? I would totally taunt everyone. I was having fun with it, right? I did have like 2 or 3 callers like, hey, dude, we just saw what they did to you on CNN. If you get a ticket, I want to pay for it. And so I'm like, oh shit, there's like people out here in California that are like loving this, right?
Yeah.
So then the next day, the mayor of Vacaville calls me and he's like, hey, dude, I know you're going to open, but damn, I didn't know you're going to go like on national news and say you're open. It puts us in a bad spot. I'm like, well, that's too bad, because he was a friendly acquaintance of mine. We get along fine. He's like, well, what are we going to do? And I'm like, hey, listen, you do whatever you have to do, whatever you think is right. I'm not telling you what to do. You're the mayor. Do what you're going to do. But I'm telling you that it wouldn't be a good idea for you to send the cops or anyone over to my shop.
Yeah.
Because I know the rules, and I'm going to tell them to fuck off. So I'm telling you that right now. Like, he's like, no, we're not going to send the cops. We would never do that. And he's like, I know that you're going to open tomorrow, and there's going to be news crews there. Can you just say that the city of Vacaville supports me, but they do, like, he basically wanted me to lie and say that they supported me. So I did that because I thought that was going to mean like there was no cops coming.
Right.
Well, so they were waiting, and because the news crews was waiting for the cops to serve me, because they came down the pipes that they were going to serve me a cease and desist. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Good.
Stinking phone. So anyways, as soon as the news crews stood there for like 3 or 4 hours, the second they drove off, Vacaville PD was like 2 blocks away looking at the shop. And they came into my shop like a SWAT team, you know what I mean? Like 3 cars, and then 3 dudes just jump out in uniform. And I know all the dudes, right? I've cut half of them, And they're like, hey, man. And I'm like, so I told my guys, like, film this, get this on camera right now. Because what they didn't know was Tucker Carlson called me the night before and was like, hey, I just saw what you're seeing in an interview. I want you to be on my show tomorrow. So I knew who Tucker Carlson was. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, right? And so then I'm like, hey, film this to my barbers. So they all filmed it, took a bunch of pictures. And so I posted it right away, right? At first, I wasn't going to post it. But then the city of Vacaville itself posted my cease and desist online.
Wow.
For everyone to see, right? So they were basically telling everyone, like, see, we told them to stop. We served them a cease and desist, right? And so I called up the mayor. I'm like, why did you do that? Like, you said you weren't going to. Oh, well, were they polite to you? And I'm like, what? I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? I'm like, you know what? Now it's my turn to post.
Yeah.
So I posted. I'm talking about the whole city of Vacaville. So then one of the dispatchers dispatched another cop here, and they're like, hey, can you take that post down? Because our 911 service we're so clogged with calls about your shop, because everyone in Vacaville was like, fuck you, Vacaville PD. Like, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you did that. This guy served his country. He was a cop, and, is the best pro law enforcement.
Wow.
And you guys just dissed him in front of everyone. Like, why would you do that? So everyone, like, I'm talking about thousands of people were pissed, right? And so then the mayor calls me back. He's like, Juan, hey, what happened? I thought we had an agreement. I'm like, I thought we had an agreement too, but you fucking lied. So agreement's off. And I'm like, oh, and by the way, I'm about to be on Tucker Carlson. So, if you want to call me after, call me in about an hour because I'm busy. Click, hung up on him, blocked, stopped my phone. And then I went on Tucker Carlson. And I'd sent his producers all the pictures of the cops serving me that cease and desist. So it just made the city look like a bunch of assholes, right?
Good.
And the state. Yeah, it was good. But, I knew it was going to cause beef because, now I knew I was going to be stubborn and be like, and so then they came back a couple times like, hey, listen, if you guys are not here to arrest me, then get the fuck out of my shop. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're not, I'm like, and I hope you do arrest me because that'll make my GoFundMe go nuts. You know what I mean? So go ahead. And unless you're going to cut off my hands, I'm not stopping. So then they were doing this and that. And so then I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go give free haircuts in front of City Hall. So next day I put a barber chair in my truck and all this stuff. Went over to City Hall. I had a line down the whole street. I cut the more people that day than I ever cut my whole life.
Wow.
Right. And just to piss the city off, like, because that's the kind of guy I am. Like, you want to back me in the corner, then I'm going to be more stubborn than you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, the coverage was cool. Honestly, it was the best business decision I ever made in my whole entire life.
Really?
I do it again 1,000 times. You know what I mean? But yeah, I got my license taken away and I got my shop license taken away. But all I did was form an LLC, right? And so I sold my shop to my LLC, which I'm the owner of, and they issued me a new license. Now, am I legally allowed to cut hair? No, they took my license to cut hair. So if they ever entered my establishment and I'm cutting hair, I'm gonna get $1,000 fine. But who cares? Put it on my tab.
Yeah.
Are you here to cut my hands off? Oh well. Oh, you're gonna take the shop license away from this LLC? Okay, I'll form a new one. What are you gonna do about it? Oh, my wife will form a new one, and she'll own the shops. I'll sell them to my kids. What are you gonna do? There's nothing you can do, and they know it, and I know it, and so we're gonna play this game. And I'm just a stubborn guy. I'm more stubborn than most, and so.
Juan, one of the reasons I was asking you this question was to lead me into my last question, which was something I've been wanting to ask you since I've been watching you and your story, and now talking to you for the last couple of hours, and what I know about you so far. I've been wanting to ask you, what can people do from your point of view? Because you've obviously been very proactive, not just proactive. You've just been very, I wouldn't want to say active or reactive. You've just been doing you and fuck the rest, and I'm gonna get shit done attitude. I was going to ask you what kind of advice you would have for people, or what would you say? Like if we were to do like a closing section of this, what kind of message regarding what's happened, the way people reacted, and what we see now and the condition we're in, what would you say to these people, and what they should look out for? What can they do in the future? What can they do now? I think actually in an indirect way, you really just answered that really well with the way in which you responded to this scenario for the last 2 hours, but also the last 5 minutes of you just giving that story with that sort of really badass American attitude of just fuck you. Like, I'm not gonna do this. It's not gonna happen. And you want to fuck with me, then I'm gonna use the system to, come right back. And you're not gonna stop me. And it's not a condescending thing. You're just doing your life.
And then think about this. I don't have to be a barber to own shops, right? I can open up 100 shops and make my money back. And guess what else I own? I own a tattoo shop, right? So who governs the tattoo shops? Our health agency, right? Which is the county level. I could just go. I literally can go down to the county right now, pay $148 to the Department of Environmental Services, right? And I'm a licensed tattoo artist,
Right.
right? So then I guess I could fuck up a couple of my buddies for a couple of years, and then I'll get good at it, right?
Yeah.
And tattoo artists make more than freaking barbers.
Pretty quick.
To be honest with you, I mean, my barbers make really good money, or my tattoo artists make better money than me, right? So, I mean, it's not like I'm running out of options. And then what are you going to do? The state doesn't regulate tattooing, right? The county does.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's a super simple license to get. And I don't have to tattoo one day in my life. I got to take a 30-minute bloodborne pathogen test, right? And then I go pay $148 every year, and I'm a tattoo artist, right? Yep. And then I get a cool iPad, I get some carbon paper, and I fucking start tracing shit,
Yeah.
Until I get good.
So you have that mentality, that industrious mentality that I was describing earlier. And I think that's probably what drew me to you. That's why I know about you. That's why you've been on the news and you've made quite a statement. And you've made a statement, and I would say without making a statement. It's not like you're setting out to this. You're just responding to what you need to respond to. It's not like you're going out there and saying, "Hey, everybody, look at me." This is you're just backing your own word. And so let's get real specific on like what could be a message? Like what would be Juan's message, sending it out from Primo's Barbershop to the world, saying, "Look, pay attention, and here's why. Here's what you should pay attention to, and here's why." Like if you were to give me something like that from your own words.
I would honestly say almost in every career that we have, right? Like your craft and my craft are different, right? And if you're a nurse, if you're an ambulance driver, if you're a freaking doctor or a lawyer, right? Like you have to remember, like none of this is who we are, right? when I was a cop, I used to think I was Juan the cop. I'm Juan the CHP officer, right? And I work North Richmond and I work Oakland. And I'm a badass, right? And then I lost that job like that. You know what I mean? And it killed me because these guys that I would have taken bullets for didn't call me and see how I was doing, right? This department that was supposed to be my CHP family never called to see how my kids were and if we had enough to provide for. Now, I had to get on food stamps and I had to go get low income housing when my money ran out and because my retirement didn't hit correctly. You know what I mean? And so I realized right then and there that being a CHP officer or a barber or a lawyer, whatever it is, it's not who you are. It's just what you do,
Yeah.
right? And if that's not who you are, and you're not beholden to that career, and you're not beholden to that paycheck, and you're not beholden to that idea that like, oh, people only will like me if I'm a cop, or people will only like me if I'm a tattoo artist, or people will only like me if I'm a nurse, right? And my kids, the only way I can provide for my kids is that be a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer. Like, right? If you just remember that, hey, who I am is I'm a Christian, I'm a husband, I'm a hunter, I fly fish, I go-kart race, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a son, right? All the things that are way more important are who you are. That what you do is just that. It's just a means to who you are, right? It provides the means to go fishing, to go deep sea diving, to take your wife out on a date, to provide for your children, right? But if that's not who you are, then you can do anything. You can be anyone can be a shop owner. It's not fucking rocket science, right? And any of us can create income for ourselves, right? So you just can't be beholden and afraid to be American and who, because that's who I am. I'm an American, right? But I'm a God-fearing American. I'm a family God-fearing American, and I'm gonna do. I don't. If I have to fucking steal or dig ditches, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna provide, and everyone has to have that can-do attitude. And remember that you're so much more than your career. And if you're not afraid of that, if you believe in yourself that you're more than what your career says you are, then you're not afraid. You won't be afraid of these shutdowns. You won't be afraid to stay open. You won't be afraid to get a ticket or get a fine that's
Right.
administrative. That's not even collectible. Who cares? Who cares? If you get a
Absolutely.
work out of your, you know what? Really what the government did is they made it easy for me not to claim any tax like income. Right? If I'm not legally allowed to cut barber hair, how can I claim the income? Right? So the state just fucked themselves. They helped me out. Right?
Sure.
So all I own a business. Every year my business loses money. Right? Because I buy another business. I can claim a loss every year. Right?
Right.
So and now I don't have an income from my chair because I'm not a barber. Right?
Interesting.
So
So you got industrious, Juan.
I got industrious because I don't care. Like
Yeah.
no one's gonna tell me like am I out here raping or murdering or doing drugs or selling dope or anything? No, I'm not. But you know what's crazy about those people is that like there's no crackhead waiting for a fucking handout. They're out there busting a move to get their next fucking whatever, right? If they're that industrious, then why can't I be?
Right.
You know what I mean? If they're willing to
100%.
fucking dig through trash cans, why aren't I?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we got to make it happen. I like that spirit a lot. I think that's infectious and definitely commendable. But it's also I know from one man to another who knows what that feels like. It's very very relieving, to feel that way and to know that. Like I like what you said about cutting your hands off to get you to quit. Like if you're not here to cut my hands off, then leave. Give me your fine, and I'm gonna get back to work. What's interesting is because I say the same thing, but I say cut my head off. So it's kind of funny that you said
Yeah.
cut my hands off because I always tell people, unless this cuts my head off, I don't care if my back hurts. I don't care if my neck hurts, which does all the time. I'm actually suffering from a neck injury at the very moment that I'm hoping goes away this week because it happens with our profession. It's not a big deal.
Oh yeah.
But unless you cut my head off, I'm not going to fucking stop. Like I'm not quitting. I'm going to keep going. And I like that idea. And that's something I actually want to get tattooed on me. Probably not in English, but maybe in a like Latin or something that most people don't read because I don't want it to be directions. But it just reminds me
Right.
that I'm willing to go that far.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Like I could lose all these physical shops in one day, but I guarantee you I'm going to cut hair and make money. I
Yeah.
don't care if I have to go to your house. If you have to come to my house, I'm going to make money.
Yeah.
I'm going to find someone who's going to let me cut at their shop and when my welcome's worn out, I'm going to go to another fucking shop, right? Because I'm going to make money. I'm going to provide for my kids.
That's great.
It's going to happen.
So Juan, Mike is on here and he's saying protect and serve has become harass and fine.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it has. It's crazy how, like all these criminals are allowed to do whatever they want, and you're going to come. Like, here's the thing about law enforcement right now, right? The thin blue line, family, and all that. It's like they're burning their candle from both ends, right? So they have this 90% of society that fucking hates them. Everyone hates cops, right? Oh, they're only going to give me a ticket, or oh, they're going to take my baby daddy away, or whatever, right? Everyone hates cops, right? And you have maybe 10% of Americans that love cops, right? And that support them and have their back and will argue for them and all this stuff, right? And give them the benefit of the doubt, right? And so they're dealing with these 90%, and then who do they turn on? They go to the school board meetings and they arrest these dads with fucking thin blue line shirts on, right? And they arrest these firefighters at the school board meetings, because his daughter got harassed by some trans guy in her locker. And they come to businesses that are run by former law enforcement and military guys, and they cease and desist us and shut us down and try to sit here and talk to me like I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? And so now they burned the candle on this end too. And they only had that much candle on that end. And it's so unfortunately
it's not spelling anything out.
Law enforcement's really, it's a bad look. It's a bad look because seriously, like, think about it. All the good families that you know of, they're afraid to protest at school board meetings, and that's their right. Like, that's their duty as parents to go stand up for their children, right? If they don't see something wrong or right, if they don't like something, right? And now they're afraid to, because like the cops are going to be there, and if I speak up, they're going to kick me out. Like, who cares if you get kicked out?
Right.
Like, catch it on video and fucking post it the next day.
Yeah.
If I run for mayor, I already know they're gonna put like signs up like, oh, never Juan or never Damaris or never whatever, right? I'm gonna go take a picture next to all those motherfuckers and be like, yo,
Yeah.
And then if I win, I'm gonna be like, yeah, see, there's I don't shy away from like the bad publicity, because on some level, all publicity is good publicity.
Correct.
When you're a business owner.
Yeah. See, and Juan, we need more people that understand at least the world that we actually live in more like you do, because you're seeing the world, and I mean, not that I'm the person to qualify somebody, but from my estimation, you see the world from, well, let the proof in the pudding, right? Let it speak for itself that you're running successful businesses. You have, I'm sure, a beautiful family, right? Your wife's watching here and obviously shows support and love for you. And you have people that work for you.
And she's like 9 years younger than me and super hot.
Oh, yeah. So she obviously supports you deeply, and you guys, you have a good thing going on your end and in life. And so that right there is all the qualification you need. You don't need it from me. You don't need it from anybody else. And you obviously don't seek it out from anybody else. That being said, I think a lot of people can learn a lot from this episode, and just from what you're saying. Has there been, let me ask you this, I don't usually lead people to other people's content, but unless it's useful or helpful, but has there been anything else that you've shared in other places, whether it's interviews or something, or even something you know of that you feel like would be really useful for people to watch?
There's an interview I did with the Red, White, and Blueprint. They're guys out of Shasta County. There's a guy named Carlos Abata, is a Marine Corps major, owns a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place and a bar and grill called the Ponderosa Room. He's that guy that you saw on TV that was like, went to the county of Shasta and was like, listen, I'm telling you that we're disciplined Americans right now, but you guys are pushing it. Like, basically told them, the county, that, hey, and it was watched by millions. Look it up. His name's Carlos Abata. Anyways, he formed an organization called Red, White, and Blueprint, and they have a podcast similar to yours. And they actually voted out like 3 or 4 of their 5 supervisors, because a lot of people don't know NorCal is different than California. Like, I'm not talking about Sacramento and San Francisco NorCal. I'm talking about like the state of Jefferson NorCal. they're different than us, right? And so they voted out their all their supervisors. They were not fucking around. And if you get a chance to watch his stuff, again, it's called Red, White, and Blueprint. They have a
Okay.
podcast. They have a couple episodes, really good stuff. Carlos Sabata. Um, and then I think that's probably, and yours is probably the only two legit podcasts I feel like I've been on. Been
Okay.
on a couple of miscellaneous stuff, but that one was a good one.
Yeah, I'll
And
definitely
then
take a look
I
at
would
that
encourage
too.
you to follow. Carlos is a hell of an example. You know, like there's not too many guys that I think like, oh man, I want to be like that guy, but he's definitely one of them.
Very
So he's a
cool.
good God fearing American man.
Very cool. So to wrap this up,
Yeah.
I feel like in a lot of ways, even though we used one sort of subject, the overarching theme of, you know, what it was like as a business owner, what it's like as a family person, as a Californian even, right? Which is going to be kind of similar to a lot of people's experiences, but maybe even a little bit more extreme to some extent, or a little more unique. To cover all those things and to see the way that you handled it and to hear about this has been really even nice for me to truly say thanks to you, because, you know, me sitting in little town Clovis here in the very dead center of California in the Valley, wondering if that shop door is going to open and somebody's going to come in and, you know, harass me or try to shut me down. And what am I going to do? And what am I, because everybody asked, everybody knows this, if you can recount, everybody asked, well, what if they shut you? What are you going to do? Well, how are you open? Everybody was like astounded. Well, aren't you afraid? And I'm like, no. What are they going to come in unless you cut my head off? I'm not going to quit. So it was really ironic that you even said that about cutting your hands off, because that just shows that there's obviously a reason why you're on this show and why I asked you to be here. And I had that good intuition, and I'm glad I can trust it, because I've been reaching out. Like, if you didn't know, I wasn't going to quit reaching out to you, even if I had to show up to you once I get some time off, because we got to do this again. We got to meet up and have another conversation in person.
Yeah, it'd be super fun. I think we should. Shit, I'll even get a tat
Dude,
while
I'm
I'm down
down.
there.
You 100%.
Yeah.
We'll do something
I'll
live
hook you
even, because I got a setup for that.
I'll get you a haircut. I'll get you a haircut and you give me a little tat.
This is all I got.
Line the beard up.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Blend
all
it
I
all
need.
in.
I've never had it happen, so
Hey, we'll do
you'll be
it.
my first. You'll take my beard virginity.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Juan, thank you so very much for your time. It's been 2 hours and
Yeah, man.
46
Thank you
minutes.
guys.
Everybody fucking rock and rolled in the comment section, so thank you guys for that.
Yeah, and thanks
Juan,
to everyone for paying attention.
how can people support you in what you're doing? We know that obviously this type of stuff isn't over. I think this is just the beginning of many more things to come, but how can people find you, whether they want a haircut or support you, or if you have Instagram? I know
All
you
my
have
individual barbershops, Primo's Barbershop, Backville, Dixon, Fairfield, Wairika, Winters. They all have Primo's Tattoo Shop. We all have individual Instagrams. Follow them. My Instagram's street_faded. Follow me. I'm not a secret. I'm pretty much open book. So you'll see what's going on in my life. See my beautiful family, and I'll keep on rocking and rolling, and keep on posting. I'm not afraid. Like I said, I'm not afraid to post about what's going on. And if I don't like something, I'm going to post about it. And listen, I also don't think everyone has to agree with everything I say or everything I do. You can actually look at my stuff and be like, Juan's a fucking tart on this one. And that's cool with me, right? We don't have to like break up and fucking not be cool anymore.
right?
Just,
Yeah, I'm down.
just, you don't have to agree with everything, you know, and I don't agree with everyone's everything either. But I think I think that there's moderation in everything. I don't mind being moderate, but there's some things that there's no place for moderation. And I think it's those four things you were talking about. You know, your
100%.
goal, your God, your family, strength, all that.
Yep,
Those are the things you
100%.
don't want to be moderate about.
That's what we're going to talk
So
about next time. We'll talk about those 4 things so we can get specific and
I'm gonna
share
think
too.
I'm gonna think about those four things a lot, and then definitely weigh in on it.
Awesome. Juan, thank you so very much for being on the show. I appreciate you.
All right, bro.
Yep. Thank
Bye,
you
guys.
guys, everybody else, for being on here. Thank you. This was a great episode, and I look forward to obviously doing more and getting Juan on again. I think that was rad and exactly how I expected it to go. If you guys have any questions and you want to find Juan, and you have anything you'd like to say to him, whether it's, he gave you the Instagram handle, it's street _faded. I'll actually link it if I don't get it completely right, but I'll link it below so you guys can see it. And yeah, so I appreciate you guys for joining us. As always, for getting spicy in the comment section, sending the American flags. You can never go wrong. Dambria is saying thank you for your service, so I appreciate that, Dambria. And we will see you guys on the next episode. This was episode 72. I didn't announce that, but here we are, Artistic Freedom, episode number 2. We had Juan on with us, your host, Joshua Ray Farmer from Clovis, California, watching Artistic Freedom. Thanks, y'all. It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. And I appreciate you. And if you see Linda, tell her she's my favorite.
Good job.